Good to go.
Okay, so being 6:30 and having quorum on December 18th, 2024, got item 1, call the Bridgewater Planning Board to order. The meeting is being held remotely in accordance with the provisions of the open meeting law pursuant to the governor's approval of a supplemental budget bill. Temporary provisions of the pertaining to the open meeting law have been extended to March 31st, 2025. Specifically, this further extension allows public bodies to continue holding meetings remotely without a quorum of the public body physically present at a meeting location and provide adequate and alternative access to remote meetings. This language of the extension does not make any substantive changes to the open meeting law, other than extending the expiration date of the temporary provisions regarding remote meetings from March 31st, 2023 to March 31st, 2025. Members of the public are encouraged to participate remotely. Excuse me, sorry. And shall address the questions to the chair of the board of the host, who's Mr. O'Brien, this evening. So the following members are participating remotely this evening. I'm Patrick Driscoll, the chair, Mr. Michael McDonald, the vice chair, Mr. Stephen Geller, Ms. Astrid Rojas, Mr. Edward Haley, and we have an alternate this evening, Ms. MJ Spagone. During the meetings, all votes will be roll call votes. The following staff are participating remotely this evening with us as well. Mr. Robert Rulli, the Community and Economic Development Director, Mr. Shane O'Brien, the Town Planner, Mr. Greg Tansey, the Town Engineer, and Mr. Stephen Solari, the Building Commissioner. At this time, everyone's mics are muted. The board's mics will be unmuted through the whole meeting, and as items appear on the agenda, the project's representatives' mics will be unmuted. It's a public hearing. We allow for public comment. We ask you to use your chat feature to ask your question by listing your name and your address and your question. The chair of the host will recognize questions in order. You can use the raise my hand feature in the participant menu, and you'll be unmuted when the chair of the host recognizes you. Again, before speaking, please state your name and your address before asking a question. If you're on the phone, you can dial *9 to raise your hand. Okay, so back to the agenda. Item 2, we have an A&R before us. This is 0 South Street, map 74, lot 98, and 722 South Street, map 74, lot 4 and 102. Is the applicant or the applicant's representatives on with us this evening?
I believe so. This is Silva Engineering.
I am here. Excuse me a moment while I button. Okay, Rebecca, Silver Engineering for the A&R that is going to be in front of you in 1 moment.
You want to bring that to the chain, share the screen?
Yep.
I will push this button. Sorry.
It's okay. We're switching it up today at the request of the board at the last meeting. We're putting A&Rs first.
A&Rs first is a great idea. Fully
We've had a number of engineers ask for this, so I think it's a good idea.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, so this is one version, but I don't want to talk about this one yet. We've seen this parcel a few times, and I guess I just wanted to get the board familiar with why we've seen it a few times. So I have the other one pulled up, not the new one. This is the A&R that we have in front of you right now. Okay, so we're on South Street across from Harvest Lane. We have 722, and then we have a 0, which is the backland of the Leach Family Trust. And it was always thought that this little parcel should be left with the original 722. And so at one point, a triangular shape, just give them the triangle. And we gave them the triangle, and then they saw how silly it looked, so they decided, well, let's just give them the rest of the triangle. And now the piece of property looks like it did probably like 4 years ago when we carved it out. That's the intent of what you have in front of you. It's a long story for a very, very tiny piece of property, but it makes the Leach family happy to put this piece back with 722.
So basically 98C is getting added and becoming part of 4A, correct?
Correct.
Is that map 74 4A is not owned by Leach, is that correct?
That is correct. It is, let's see, it was one name and now it's another name.
But they signed the application. I don't have a copy of the application.
see.
Did they sign the application?
Not sure if we got them to sign the application. They're the receiving end, so we didn't get them to sign an application. But we can.
Shane, don't we, that's the one question I had. Don't we need all parties involved in the Form A to sign the application?
That is correct.
So do we have an application for this?
We do have an application through Permitize. So through the Permitize software, we do allow for electronic signature. But sometimes typically when there's multiple owners, we ask for multiple owners to sign off on the A&R application.
Well, I guess when I didn't see the application, do we have the right to modify somebody's lot without them knowing? Without them signing off
No,
on it?
typically we would ask for both signatures, Mr. Chair. But we did receive an application. There was an application that was received by the clerk's office.
But was was the application signed by lot 4A?
It was signed by the Leach Family Trust.
Otherwise, doesn't make it very easy, so we will get a paper copy of an application signed by 722 and the Leach Family Trust.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if I might add, this is a parcel that's coming out of the Leach property. It's going to be conveyed to the owners of the other property, so whether or not they technically needed to sign or not, I would argue that it's not being divided from their property. This is something that's going to be added to their property.
It is being given to them.
Okay. I just think before endorsement, we should have that updated application, that's all.
Is there a way we can condition the?
No, yeah, I shouldn't say endorsement, before signature, I should say, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah, we can have that as I guess a standard condition, Mr. Chair, as you're the sole signatory, so we can make sure that happens.
Okay,
I'd be-
what-
I'd be
board-
comfortable with that. Yeah, I mean, I agree with Mr. Driscoll that the procedure should be followed. But I also agree with Mr. Silva that we could probably find a workaround for this to get it done tonight.
Okay, any other members of the board? No?
No.
Any other staff comments?
No, I like Rebecca said, we saw this exact layout with the triangle about
A year ago,
year or two. Time
September.
flies. But yeah, we've done.
2023, yep.
All right, so do we have if there's no more discussion, does somebody want to make a motion to either accept, endorse or not endorse?
I'll make a motion to endorse.
And
With
Mr.
the condition that we acquire the necessary signature before the signature is
Yeah, we won't sign it until they have the owner of that lot sign off, that's all.
correct. Yeah.
I will second Michael's motion.
So motion by Mr. McDonald, second by Mr. Haley, any discussion? So I'll take the roll, Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
Mr. Geller,
Yes.
Ms. Rojas?
Yes. Yes. Can you hear
Okay.
me?
Yep, I got you.
Yep.
Who am I missing now? Mr. Geller, McDonald, oh, Mr. Haley, I'm sorry,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. Okay. I wrote your name on the other side, I'm sorry. Okay. Thank you. Okay, so, going back to the agenda, item 3, we have a public hearing. So the way the public hearing will work is that we'll ask the applicant to present their proposal. The board will then ask questions along with staff, and then we'll open it for public comment. We just ask that you state your name and your address before asking a question. I'll open the public hearing for 43R Central Square, map 34, lot 65. This is a site plan review under section 10.6 and a special permit under section 6.1.4 and 9.6 to convert an existing manufacturing building into a mixed-use building with 6 units. This is continued from November 20th and December 4th. This has not been opened yet. So I will open that public hearing. We did get all the green cards, Mr. O'Brien, correct?
That is correct.
So there was an ad posted for 43R Central Square.
Yeah, I can pull it up.
On Wednesday, November 20th, 2024 at 6:30 PM. The Bridgewater Planning Board will be conducting a public hearing via Zoom for an application from Balsamo Realty LLC for a site plan approval under section 10.6 of the Bridgewater zoning ordinance and special permit section 6.1.4 and 9.6 to convert an existing manufacturing building into a mixed-use building with 6 units on 0.2 acres with associated parking and drainage located at 43R Central Square, Bridgewater, Mass. Assessors map 34, lot 66. The plans were prepared by Silver Engineering and are on file in the office of the town clerk and the CED office and the website. All interested persons are encouraged to attend. This was posted by the Bridgewater Planning Board. This ad ran on 10/6 and 10/13/2024.
11/13.
Oh, I'm sorry. 10/6 and 11/13. I'm sorry.
Oh, 11, both in November.
11/6 and 11/13. I'm sorry. Was I saying 10?
Yes.
I'm sorry. Okay. So that is, the hearing is open. We did receive the plans. We did receive updated plans. We received, a memo from our town engineer and, some correspondence from abutters. So before we get into all that, I'll open it up to the applicant for their presentation.
Good evening. Larry Silva from Silver Engineering Associates, offices at 1615 Bedford Street in Bridgewater. And representing Balsamo Realty LLC on this application. The property that we're talking about is located right down in Central Square. It's designated as 43R. There is a 43, straight 43 and a 43R. This is 43R. It sits on the west side of the square. To the right of it is the Masonic Lodge, and on the left side of it is there's a small parking lot, and then there just to the left of that is the what's known as the Torrey House, but basically the residential house that sits there that dates back in history. So this the site is in area, it's 12,000, I think it's like 12,700 or so square feet. And it's accessed by a 20-foot right of way, which is granted from the neighboring 39 Central Square property. Was deeded back, I want to say, I think if I'm correct, it might have been in the 1800s or something is when it was first established. That right away is for the use and the rights to it are for the people that border the right away itself. So it's really for 43 and 40 and 43R. There is some question about the parking spaces in the front as to how, if there are rights to the access, but I think that it's covered in the fact that they border on that side. So the way that the right of way was set up, just so that I can clear that up now, is that it's a 20-foot passageway, but in the deeds it's divided in half as 10 and 10. And the reason why it's divided in half was to basically assign responsibilities for maintaining the passageway. So the left side of the passageway coming of the southern half of it is for the responsibility of number 43 to maintain it, and the top half, or the northern strip, is for 43R to maintain it. But in essence, it's one passageway for access. So on the property itself, the existing building today stands more like a rectangle. It did have a section that has been demoed in the front on the right side. It shows demo, but that actually has been taken down. And then on the left side, there was formerly there was a little loading dock there, and that was removed some time ago. I'm not sure exactly when that was removed, but that's not shown at this time. So it was the building's historic use in recent decades was for a I believe it was like an upholstery kind of business that was located in there. Fernandes was the name associated with it, and that's was a single-story building, and it I can't see if I have the total area of the building. It's about 3,612 square feet as it stands now, I believe. And so what's being proposed, and so really what's being proposed now under the regulations for Central Business District S is to actually convert it into a mixed use building. The first floor would be commercial, and then 2 floors would be added to it in order to add 6 residential units. And so there's a rendering here on the screen now that shows what the end result of what it would look like. There is the entrance on the front side. It has a big glass window area that's into the commercial space. So the light color is the commercial space area, and then above that, the 2 darker shades are the residential units. The parking, the existing parking that's on the site was somewhat limited to the front side, primarily because there was not a good access to the back side when that loading dock was on the left. Now that that's gone, the proposal is to add parking to the rear of the building and to add additional parking in the front, partially where it was open before and partially where that area is demoed in the front. So so the proposal is to have the 6 units. The requirement is to have 1 space for each residential unit, and then an additional one for every 3 units for visitor parking. So that means 8 spaces of the ones that are provided are designated for the residential use, and that leaves some spaces for commercial, not a lot, just a couple of spaces. Let's see, we get a total. If you see in the chart there that's on the screen right now, is the breakdown showing how the residential ones were computed. And then the 9 commercial spaces, a total of 17 spaces is what's required under the regulation, and provided is 11 spaces on site, which included 1 that was van accessible. And then off-site parking, the additional 6 that would be needed. Our original proposal was to utilize the public parking that is in the area of Central Square, much like every other business that's downtown. And there's thousands of square feet of commercial downtown, which uses the open public parking to satisfy their needs. So that's what the proposal is before you. There were we attempted to meet all the requirements in the regulations. The one that was difficult because of providing the parking spaces to the rear also included providing for drainage underneath it, which was an infiltration system. We did test pits out there, and that was designed for a subsurface stormwater system there, so that we have a net zero runoff from the site. But in order to be able to accomplish all these things, we were not able to meet one of the requirements, was the 20% open space. We went back and forth on it. In the second round of comments, we made some adjustments to the site plan, reduced down the width of the access road to 18, which is allowed in this district. We had a wider road before. By reducing it down to 18, we're able to get up to 16% open space. So we're 4% shy of the requirement under the bylaw. What else can I say to you? The lighting that's being proposed for it is obviously not to impact the neighborhood. It's mostly commercial, but there is residential to the rear of the site. And so care is being taken not to create any off-site lighting that would be unwanted for those residents. The other issues were that the building is being proposed to have solar. And when you do the calculation for this district as to how many residential units are able to put in a mixed-use building in this district, it rounds out to be just a little over 5. But we're asking for the bonus, and this is where the special permit comes in, is asking for the bonus to allow us to go to 6 because we're placing solar panels on the roof, which is one of the criteria that's in there for allowing for a density bonus. So in the end, there's a breakdown that shows the architect has on the ground floor he has the amount of area that's attributed to the commercial use. And then there is a block out in there that's for the laundry room and so forth for the residents above. So, but the commercial fit out in there is about 2,500 square feet or some, or plus or minus that amount. And then above that are the 3 units per floor. You can see they're color coded here, so you can see the differences. They're good size residential units. Pretty much that's the overview. I believe that Matt Holmes is probably on, and he can actually provide you a little bit more detail about the architectural portion of the building itself. And then I would say that we could then open it up to whatever questions you might have. So if I can turn it over to Matt, maybe he can talk a little bit more about the building itself.
Great. Thank you. Matt Holmes, MJH Architects. I am the architect on the project, as Larry has stated. So he did a pretty good job actually doing the building portion too. Thanks, Larry. As he said, currently the building is a 1-story structure. Appendage on the southern side has been taken off. The appendage on the front that comes off is also going to be taken off. So that leaves us basically a rectangular box of the existing, and then we're just carrying that line of the exterior walls up for 2 more floors, as Larry mentioned. Each floor will have 3 units. All 3 units on each floor are 3-bedroom units. So all 6 units within the building will be 3-bedroom units with 1 full bathroom, kitchen, so on and so forth. Larry, maybe I share my screen. Is that easier? That might be easier if I can do this.
Yeah.
Send a request. Working on it. I'm doing the thing.
Apologies.
Okay. Everyone. Excuse me. Is everyone seeing this by any chance? The screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so you see the kind of the same thing now that Larry was showing earlier. Okay, so now we're in floor. Again, this is the commercial. So kind of the orangish pink, not sure what it shows up as, is the commercial space. The gray space is just a blocked out for future toilet rooms, whether they're going to be there or not. We're not there yet. The white spaces are kind of circulation. So in order for the residents above, there's two ways to come in. There's two stairwells. There's a stairwell at the front portion of the building. And to give people the orientation here is the front building where you see this kind of blocked out handicap accessible spot, that is towards Central Square. The right side is the back. So if you were entering the building through this, you could take a stairwell upstairs to the second and third floor. That would be, we'll call it the front stair or stair one. There's also a way to get down the back along a walkway. You get access into the back portion. It takes you up to kind of a mezzanine level. There's an existing mezzanine. You take those stairs up. This staircase will go up. It's a little different configuration, and it'll also take you up to the second and third floor for the residential. So this white space back here is more of a circulation space. This piece in the back, not quite sure yet. Could be a mechanical, some sort of storage space. We're not there yet. The yellowish space is the laundry that Larry mentioned. That will be for the units above and for the residential. So for security purposes, obviously this back portion goes with the second and third floor, and the commercial space would not be allowed to get in here without some sort of key card access, something like that for building people. Right now we're showing probably somewhere around 4 washing machines and 4 dryers. Again, maybe that changes a little bit, but that's the gist for the residents above. Now, if we go up to the second floor, again, green, red, and blue, 3 different types of units, 3 different kind of configurations. Again, all 3 are 3 bedrooms. There's a kind of a smaller, a moderate-sized living room area that's opened up to full kitchens. They will have areas where they can have, in 2 of the units, they'll have a table area where for dining, and then there will be a full bathroom, which would basically be a 42-inch kind of vanity sink, 34-inch by 48-inch shower. That's the gist of the bathrooms. The one unit, I guess this will be the north side of the building. Definitely a different kind of elongated configuration. The kitchen on this one, the seating would be more of a an island style. Bathrooms, the same thing, just different orientation, and then opened up to the living room. Again, here's that back stair, and then here's the front stair. So then if you're going to go up to the third floor, it's a mirror image of basically what's happening below. The only difference, here's second, here's third, is just in this area, you get a little bit more room up here, and that's just the way the stair works. So that's for all the units above. Again, these are just more typical ones. Now back to the exterior views. Again, at this door here on the front would be how you get into that first stair that I spoke about. If you came down the walkway, this would be the door back here that takes you to that back area up to the mezzanine level, and then up to the residential above. Commercial space down below.
Not to interrupt your presentation, but just to make sure we're looking at the same plan.
Yep.
I saw that Mr. Silva this week responded that the overhead door is no longer there.
It was never an overhead door.
It's listed as an overhead door on the plan. That's why.
It is. That is something that.
So I just want to make sure.
There
I just
yet.
want to make sure we're looking at the same. So the window configuration didn't change, did it?
It did not. It did not.
All right, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just want to make sure we're looking at the right plan.
No. That's it's the same plan that I've submitted. We're in discussion, the design team and the owner, of whether that should be a overhead door or not. And that's kind of where I was just going with this. So the plan is the same right now. Whether that changes and does not become an overhead door, maybe becomes a storefront glazing, so on and so forth, that's something that could happen. So I do want to put that out there. We're not, the commercial space hasn't been determined of what that commercial space is going to be yet. So flexibility is still a little bit of a play in this. So, but as far as the design, yeah, that could definitely go away. What it would be might be determined on what potentially would be the commercial space down below. Okay. So, plans are, any other questions on there? Are we good? Is that what you kind of needed, Mr. Chair?
Yeah, I'll ask more questions. I just wanted to make, just after reading Larry's memo today,
Yep.
I just want, it appeared based on his memo that there was a new set of architecturals. That's why I asked.
Actually, if I may, Mr. Driscoll, Mr. Holmes, I actually have a question pertaining to what Mr. Driscoll brought up. If there was to be an overhead door there, the kind of use case that comes to mind for me would be some kind of like maybe automotive shop or something like that, which I fear might exacerbate the parking situation. Is there any other use case for that kind of door installation? I'm just not familiar with the
My
use cases.
first thought is an overhead glass door like that could potentially pertain to a more restaurant, bar type entertainment area, for example.
Oh, okay. So we're not talking like a retracting door, like a garage door kind of thing.
No, I mean it technically could be, but probably not retracting. I mean, it could be a folding one. Sometimes you see in those type cases, but again, there's a very good chance that it's not going to be a door at all because the commercial space might not lend it to it because I don't believe, I don't want to speak for the owner, but I don't believe he's thinking automotive repair shop. That's for sure. So I just want to
Excellent.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. But that's why that's kind of a placeholder. You know, there's an existing overhead door, as we know there. You know, the idea right now in the design is, well, could that potentially become something that might benefit a certain type of commercial space, like the one I spoke about? So maybe that's something that could happen, but chances are it probably goes back to a fixed glass, maybe storefront glass system there instead in the opening.
Makes sense. See if you can use what you got. Gotcha.
Yep, exactly. These are just views around the back. I know Larry already spoke about the solar on the roof. This rendering, this model is just showing a roof filled with solar. You know, it's a great roof direction for solar as well. That kind of points towards the southwest, which is, I believe, ideal for solar. So that's why I think it's a great opportunity to utilize solar on the roof. Not just for, you know, to get us that extra unit, but also because it could benefit the owner, it could benefit the occupants, and obviously benefit everybody with solar. So on the other roof, you can see the way I kind of designed this is it's not just a straight gable. It's kind of a leaning of two sheds together. The reason back to that was at one point we were talking about looking at clerestory in kind of underneath the higher ridge between the roof that is the lower for the solar versus the one that comes up higher. So we're potentially looking at clerestory up here, but I think that's kind of been more abandoned because we're thinking about mechanicals and so on and so forth. The north side roof, which would be this roof here, the thought might be is that might be a standing seam metal roof, something like that. Could also be shingled if it fits in better with the area, but the thought would be standing seam metal. And then this side would have to be primarily, it would probably have to be more of a rubber roof here if we're going to put solar over it, ideally. As you can see, when you're down on the ground looking up, you're not going to be able to see that roof, particularly with the heights that we're at. So this bottom right one here, you can see you're going to be down so much, you're not going to be able to probably even see there's a lot of solar up there. Maybe some adjacent buildings might, if you look out the window, but on the ground you will not. These drawings are just some elevations. So this would be the north side, like I was talking about, with maybe the standing seam. This would be the south side, southwest side, really, with the solar. It also gives you an idea of kind of the rhythm we're looking at for the fenestration, which, by the way, the upper windows I'm calling out single hung simulated divided light. That fits into kind of the Central Business District S design standards that we have now. The lower level, this is currently all brick. There were old openings that were here that were bricked up at one point. The owner and I have discussed it. We're gonna break those back open and put some storefront. What we're looking at down here that kind of matches the color and somewhat style of the above. That would also happen on the north side, going back to the north side, some storefront punched openings here. And then on the front as well. So this stairwell on the front portion of the building, as you're coming in from Central Square, will have a storefront system in the stairwells. And on the back side, same thing in that other stairwell. So it'd just be a fixed storefront system. It does say earlier in this, I'll just mention it, siding, what we're looking at right now for above. What Larry spoke about, the gray area, we'll call it. We're looking at kind of cement fiberboard, a hardy plank type siding. Looking at potential vertical board and batten siding. Of course, we could also do a clapboard if needed, but it'll be a cement fiberboard product. The bottom floor, the existing, like I said, currently brick for the most part, does have a little kind of strange stonish veneer, take you back to the 80s type. The brick will remain just to clean it up and then to paint it is the idea. So it fits in and kind of ties the building together, even though it's different materials. The front area here, just to mention, since I'm looking at it, will have a small kind of awning roof, just kind of protect the two entrances. This entrance in the middle here would take you into the commercial space. And then, as I spoke about before, this door will take you into that front stairwell. So that's kind of the building in a quick explanation of it. But I think that wraps it up. This front portion, just to go over kind of square footages we spoke about. So each floor is 3,000, just a little over 3,600. So that gives us a little bit over 10,900 square feet total for the 3 floors, counting the commercial and the 2 residential floors above. I think that's it. That's the gist. If there's any questions.
Yeah, the only other thing, Matt, is that on your drawing there, you can see the downlighting wall packs.
Yes, thank you, Larry. Yep, thank you. So right now we're addressing some of the immediate exterior of the building with lighting packs on the building that will be site lighting, site down lighting. As Larry spoke about before, this will have to be looked into a little bit more, maybe with lighting consultant, manufacturers, so on and so forth, to make sure that we get, the correct foot candles, lumens, so on and so forth. And then, of course, not overstepping the boundaries of the lot, and certainly not, there'll be black sky type windows. They won't be shining up. They'll be just taking care of the immediate surrounding exterior areas of the building. Thank you, Larry. It's a good point. So just to point them out, I'm just kind of showing 3 on here. I should go back to the elevation, sorry. There's 3 on the back. You can see here to get kind of the back parking lot, and then you see these 3 that run along, the access road that gets you back to the parking in the rear of the building. On the north side, since the property is basically right against the building, I'm not showing any lighting there because it's not the property of the owner of this project to light somebody else's property. Thank you, Larry. I almost forgot that. Any other questions?
Thank you very much. Yes, we'll go into the board question segment, I guess. So I guess my biggest question is the right of way, Mr. Silva. So I went out there today. I went out there a couple of other times. So I'm concerned about the access. What is the actual travel width of that right of way? If you go back there's a dumpster to the left. There's a gas meter that comes out into it. there's many, roadblocks in that right away. What, did you guys determine the actual travel width of that right away? Safe travel width?
When you are at the entrance to that turn, basically it's like a turn, right? It's 21 feet from the property, 21.8 feet from the property line to the corner of the building. It's a minimum of 18-foot open travel area for a vehicle.
So you can, so safely staying away from those buildings.
Yes.
You can see in the back, that roadway goes right off the back corner of that 43. That's, maybe it's a question for Greg Tansey. That's a safe design, bringing cars that close to the building.
Well, we put, as part of our design, we have barriers that are adjacent to the building, and we have a bollard, which is right at the corner of 43 to make sure that nobody could ever get to the corner of that building.
So you're saying there's an 18-foot wide.
If you come down to the actual corner of 43, there's a bollard that's right there. And then beyond that, coming down the side of where 43 is, we have protection along their building to make sure that there is no issue there. And we also have a bollard on our corner opposite to make sure that I don't think it's on this sheet, it's probably on the other sheet.
Okay.
That actually shows that on the
So
parking sheet.
can you go back to where you were, right where that bollard is? So
we got, this is the one that shows it right here. If you can zoom in on that one.
Yeah.
You can see there's bollard on each side of that entranceway coming in. You see it right there? There's a bollard on our corner and a bollard on our property, on the project's property adjacent to 43 to make sure that their building is not compromised in any way when somebody's coming in. And then you see there are 3 long rectangular units in there to provide for sand-filled Jersey barriers in there to provide additional protection of 43, and then also along the backside to protect the building, Mr. Jules'
57.
building on the other side.
57R, yeah.
Yeah, 57R, I guess that's what that is, yeah.
So keep this right. Could you keep this diagram up right there?
Yeah.
So right where you have that proposed bollard, right by the 29-foot mark, right? So today there was a dumpster there and a truck parked there that looked like it belongs to building 43. Are we sure? I mean, is there a legal opinion in terms of rights of this right away as to what each person has? I mean, do we have a legal opinion for that from this?
It's very clear in the deeds. The deed's very clear that each one of them, this is a passageway. This is not a parking lot. That 20 foot coming in, 10 is to be maintained by 43, 10 feet of the width to be maintained by 43R. In total, it's 20-foot passageway. And it's configured as it's shown here.
And this passageway has
been there forever.
This 43R has rights to upgrade this passageway, to put utilities under it, to upgrade utilities.
Yes.
And that's all spelled out in the
Yep. And if you notice, even like building 43, you can see the overhead wire comes in over this property, over 43R, in order to go to the utility pole that's on 43R.
And what's proposed for the passageway once the utilities are reinstalled? It looks like you're bringing a 4-inch water line.
Yeah, we're bringing in a 4-inch water line in addition to the water line that was already coming into the building.
Are you bringing a new sewer line in as well? Any new utilities or anything like that?
Well, the sewer line does come in right now into the building there. And that'll provide service for the project.
All right. Are there any improvements?
There's also a sewer line connects in from the adjoining building. What did we say? That was 57, we said? It
Yeah.
comes in into this sewer manhole that's in this area in front of 43R and then goes out to Central Square.
So all this work being done in the right of way, that will all be repaved? Is that how that works, or?
Yes.
Why you have this up, the 18 feet, we allow 18 feet for drive aisle widths, but
And that's what we have.
the
We do not
zoning-
go less than 18 feet.
But the zoning for parking has a 24-foot width. Does 18 work? Can you get, if you go back, if you slide back, can you get a car out of spot one safely? With
Yeah,
18
well,
feet?
if you notice, we have 18 feet, and when you bring your car back, you're going to be approaching the area that is not paved. I would suggest that if anything, to get a little bit more protection against somebody who may not be the best person to park in and out, those bollards might get moved back a little bit in order to increase the width of the effective aisle, even though the paved aisle is only 18. So
And I
we
guess-
could
I
move
guess-
those
I guess-
bollards back.
I guess that's a
But-
question for Mr. Tanzi when he does the second review, because we require 24 for the parking aisle width. If you look in the parking table. Mr. Tanzi can review that. I just want to know if 18 works.
Well, I think that if we move the bollards in, we can still achieve 24-foot aisle, which relates, but some of it'll be paved and some of it won't be. And that'll help us keep more of an open space kind of look on that backside.
Okay, so, but as far as the passageway, have you guys, do you plan on submitting a legal opinion as to the rights for utilities, for passage, for the ability to enforce that 43 can't park there, have the dumpster there? Is that coming, or are we gonna have?
I guess I don't understand that it's been brought up as an issue, because it's not it's within the deeds. It's very clear as to what's required. No one has ever, I don't think anyone has ever challenged it legally.
All right.
It's very clear in the deeds. And in fact, one of the things I will say is that it's only for the use of the buildings that are along it. There are some apartments that are on the other side that the question might be that whether or not they have the ability to use that or not, but we're not getting into that.
All right, so I was looking at the parking, the calculations that Mr. Holmes provided and you provided seem to be different. It seems like the bathroom areas aren't included in the parking calculation. It just seems like the actual, it seems like this.
I mean, our commercial space showing 2174.
Right, but if you look at the architectural plans, it's like 20, it's 400 and something feet off between your plan and the architectural.
Yeah, so I can clarify that just a little bit, and I looked at that and noticed that. So yeah, I have
So you'd need 19 spaces instead of 17 as well.
correct. That's according to these calculations now, what I see is 10,905 square feet. But if it breaks down to residential, 6 spots, 2 visitors, just what Larry mentioned, right? So for the square footage, it would require, for the commercial space, it would be 11 spots. So that would get us to 19.
All right, so what the prior use was manufacturing, correct?
Yes.
How many spots were provided? How many spots existed when it was manufacturing?
Well, there wasn't really marked spots, but I mean, Larry, you might be able to clarify, but I
We'll
think
go back to
maybe
the existing
3?
conditions
3?
page. 3
Three.
spaces, I believe.
3 spaces?
3 probably.
Yeah, 3 spaces.
All right.
Yep.
So part of this, the lack of parking, have you identified any parking that you could deed restrict within 500 feet of the site, or no?
Well, I guess my first question to you is, before we talk about deed restricting, every business in Central Square uses public parking. And I guess I would say to you is, why should this commercial space be any different than the juice mill, the coffee shops, anyone, the barber shop, anyone else that's downtown? Why should this one be told that they have to have deeded parking instead of use of public parking like every other business and commercial area of town?
Because your property is offset from the central square.
It's not offset.
Well, let's, I just want to continue with my question, but then we can come back. So the special permit for parking, right? And, you know, I guess my biggest concern is you see the amount of commercial space and then you see 6 3-bedroom units. Are you planning on providing any parking data? I know we only require 1 per unit for residential and 1 for every 3. But to me, it seems like most 3-bedroom units would probably have more than 1 vehicle. How do you plan on managing that? And are you going to provide us any parking data that the parking provided on site is sufficient and those 3-bedroom units only need one spot? Is there anything like that coming for us to further consider the special permit?
Before I answer that, can I I have one thing that I did want to pass on to you that I was just notified of. And that is that the plan that's on display here is not the latest plan. Because the latest plan responded to comments, and I believe
this is the latest plan. That has the open space. This is the latest plan.
It might
Right
not be, hold on, it might not be, because I might, you're right, Larry. I pulled this open just trying to help you. Let me stop sharing. And you pull open the latest one.
This version that we have right in front of us is what I have in front of me for the most recent plan.
as of
So I-
December
Well,
10th,
that's what you submitted to us this week.
can you go can you go to
Um,
the page on the right, the revision block?
This
On
is
the
the
right.
one, this is the one with 16% open space versus the 4 that you had.
Okay. I'm just saying, this is the one, the plan, and
That is the plan there. I'm sorry. That's the one right there.
this is the one?
I believe so.
Because, I opened up the one that was gonna be shown 2 weeks ago. So that's where I'm confused now.
Yeah,
And I probably should know.
This is the one we got last week.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's the one that has a 12/10 date on it. I believe that's correct, but maybe Rebecca can chime in. Is that correct?
I overrode your screen share, Matt, so the plan on the screen is my plan, December 10th.
Excellent. Okay,
plan.
That's
Cool.
why.
So at
Thank
one
you.
point, it was the incorrect one, and then I took over, sorry.
awesome. Okay, thank you.
So I guess,
You pulled
is there any data coming that shows that the 3 bedrooms are only gonna need the type of demand you're proposing for the?
Well,
those-
I guess, I don't understand that question though, Pat. You're saying that, is there anything that's going to say that the apartments only require that? I mean,
Well, that's all,
zoning only
that's all we
require-
require, that's all we require.
that's
But-
all you require.
But there's not enough, we also have to consider a special permit for a total reduction. So I just wanted, is there anything coming to show us that you've worked with a parking engineer to determine that this is sufficient parking? I'm just not- so if the-
First of all, I don't know who a parking engineer is. I would imagine that's still us, a civil engineer.
All right, if
But
the-
okay, but as far as the parking itself, to say that whether
I
or
guess-
not
I
a
guess- I guess-
3-bedroom
I guess-
house,
I guess my question is there any more data coming to help us make our decision on the special permit for parking?
I don't know if is Mr. Balsamo online here or not. I know that he has had some discussions with the possibility of also having some agreement with the neighbor to the north in order to secure some additional spaces if needed.
Okay, I mean, my main concerns are the access and making sure that there's proper access and people being able to get safely back to the building and parking. So, I mean, and then obviously, if you can't meet the open space, you need a variance, so. But I'll open it up to other board questions.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I got a couple. I'm concerned about your parking is also in the pathway in, but One of my questions is there a reason why they're all 3-bedroom units and he didn't want to do any 2s or 1s?
In discussion with Mr. Balsamo, he feels that 3-bedroom worked for him. And not only that, to be honest with you, with the building and the design, the 3-bedroom worked well as well. He has indicated to me, and I don't want to speak for him totally on this subject, and he might be able to chime in, but he feels like 3-bedroom would work out best for him for who he would like to try to get to be tenants or renters of the space, more kind of oriented towards that type of renter and people, potentially family. And 3-bedroom kind of lends its way to that. You start getting into 1-bedroom, it could go to a little more congestion in the building and also potentially more somebody he really is trying to maybe avoid.
If I can add to that, we just recently went forward to the zoning board for a house that needed a variance in order to put a small addition on it because both of them work from home now. Okay, and they had a 3-bedroom house. Their daughter was coming back from college, and all of a sudden now the extra bedrooms that they had there were being used by both of them for their work from home. When you have a large units like this, it gives you more flexibility to be able to do some of that work from home, and that not changing society. That is something that's very attractive to young professionals.
So another question I have for you guys is this building that you're building and putting in and putting up and putting on 2 and 3 floors doesn't seem to be very ADA accessible. So you have nobody that can go into a wheelchair to get up to the 2nd or 3rd floor that want to live in that building.
Yeah,
Is that
so
not a requirement because you're under a certain amount of square footage or
correct. It's not
elevator, no ramps, no nothing.
correct. The first floor in this situation, since it's an existing building, it does not require an elevator to be put in and then have units on the 2nd and 3rd floor as ADA units. We actually reached out to the Massachusetts Access Board early on the project about this, and they gave us a ruling back that states that is not required. So the first floor, though, the commercial space will be ADA accessible. The bathrooms will be accessible.
Right, none of your residents, and not just being in a wheelchair, but really can't rent from there. They can't do stairs. Basically.
Correct.
I would also, I wouldn't be in favor of your standing seam metal roof on the back portion. Well, one of my main reasons is that the snow would fall off on the adjacent property behind you. But we all know that slides off of that. I would consider also your plastic filled barriers.
Stand filled.
On the site to protect the buildings are probably really kind of, lack of a better term, ugly. I'd probably want to see more of a concrete street planter to add green to the space, put plants in it. And then are we good that a fire apparatus can actually get around that building? Or have to get into that building if there's a fire safely? And then he's gonna have to back out of there. So is that?
Fire truck is not going around the backside like he doesn't go around the backside of any of the buildings. They would come to the front and they would fight the fire from the front. They would never want to be that close to a building by going around it. Case in point, go back in time to Brockton when they lost the fire truck because they brought the fire truck into the site down off of Montello Street and Main Street, and they lost the truck because they were too close to the fire itself. Fire truck has, that's why they have hoses, is that they would be able to reach it from straight on that right away. And they can reach every aspect of the building.
Okay. I would also I think I'd also want to encourage maybe a site visit by the board to actually get a feel for how tight everything is down there.
Yeah, we can certainly do that.
Makes sense?
That's all I got for now. Thanks.
Any
So,
other-
My
any-
concerns,
who's
Pat,
that? Who's
is,
the one? Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Astrid Rojas.
yes, so knowing that you want to offer 3-bedroom apartments, I'm normally in for that, but knowing that it's in a business area, knowing that the parking is tight, and assuming that the 3-bedroom apartments would go to families, it concerns me due to the safety for kids. Has anything been considered in that design to ensure safety for children?
Regarding safety inside the building?
In regards to.
Outside.
It's like safe,
Or
safe
the
access out
site.
to, safe access out to Central Square or lack of parking or what, I guess what is the concern?
Yeah, so I mean, isn't that gonna be shared parking, or is that parking just dedicated for that building?
Just
The parking-
dedicated
the
for that
parking show
building.
is just dedicated to that building.
And, Mr. Silva, is there like any fencing to block or provide some safety for the kids to come out and play if they wanted to, or is there nothing in that site
We're talking
plan,
about to the rear of the building where the parking is?
any area for the building, around the building, for children to come out?
Okay, so on the back side, there is protection on that side. There's fencing all the way along the north side to the building and in front of the building, in front of the spaces that are in front of the building. There's fencing basically around the entire site, because if you look on the southern side, there is a fence that comes along and then ties into the neighboring property. So it's not wide open to the other properties. I will say to you that the land adjacent to the rear parking spaces, that property in the back, that's a grassed area that's associated with a residential building that's on Church Street. And to the north, that's the land owned or controlled by Bridgewater Savings Bank. There used to be an auto repair shop or some sort of auto shop that used to be on there, and Bridgewater Savings acquired that lot 20 years ago or so, and they've just kept it as open space at this point. And then to the south, we said that the Todd property is residential. The Martina, what's the other one? If you can scroll up just a little bit there. It's all residential behind and to the side, and then to the south is then the backside of M&S Auto. So, I mean, there's not a lot of dedicated areas for children to play, but it is enclosed for the most part. I don't know if that shows some bit better for you.
I'm trying
You
to.
can see, I don't know if you can see that, but you see behind 43R, that's where that parking is going. There's a grass area behind that, which is part of that Church Street property. There's the bank property over there, 36R, that they own that property.
Okay,
It's not
but it doesn't
it's
belong.
not
to the
being out in a
building.
big business zone or anything like that.
Okay, but that grass area doesn't actually belong to.
No,
the-
it does not belong. No, that belongs to 37
It may
Church
cause
Street.
an issue if they do attempt to.
Yeah, but I'm just
play
saying
in
it's
the
not gonna be
building.
like cars coming at you or anything like that.
Okay,
Mr. Ross, any other questions?
that was just a major flag to me.
Okay.
Knowing that it's around so many businesses, and if cars go in and out of there isn't that much space for children to play. That would be a high concern for me.
Okay.
I have a question on children and a couple of other things, and it's something I maybe we could ask outside of the meeting, but maybe I'll just pose it here, is the purview of our board here. It's allowed to be there, it's put there, and we look at how this fits into the zoning and the various laws and regulations, right? It's, if we have questions like this, is it fit for children? Is there some other ordinance or law within the state or relative to the town that would say, if that's the case, we couldn't even be discussing this at this stage because it wouldn't be allowed to be put here? Again, just voicing it, not necessarily asking for
That's a great question, yeah.
answers, right?
What are the parameters of what we can?
Right.
I mean, who lives there? I mean, we can't dictate who lives there. We have to look
Right.
at it from a site standpoint and a zoning
Right.
standpoint and a safety standpoint. So if we're
Okay.
concerned about, if he's marketing these towards families and we're concerned about safety, then we should consider the safety aspects of that. You know, is there adequate, you know, walkable, safe walkway out to Central Square? You know, how do you get to Central Square from the building? If,
Right.
you know, so that that's what we should look at, Ted, is site specific things around,
Yep.
around safety, access, drainage. As far as the demographic of people that live there, that's up to whoever owns the property and whoever wants to rent it, so.
Thank you.
I would also say in response to Mr. Haley's question, the applicant is asking for a special permit. And one of the requirements for a special permit is that the board must find that it's in the good of the community to grant such a special permit.
Right.
And obviously that's a pretty unclear parameter. So you can do with that what you will. To a certain extent,
We have criteria in the special, so the two special permits they're looking for, and that's why I asked about parking data in existing parking spaces and the prior use, because the special permit for parking, we have to determine, one, just as Mr. McDonald said, that it's in the public good. We have a whole set of special permit criteria. And then if they don't have parking on site, if they don't have parking within 500 feet, we have to demonstrate that there's no net loss in parking on site. So that's how we handle that.
If I may continue on a good segue here for parking, the last image and I know we're talking about whether it was an older plan or a newer plan, and there was a difference of parking spaces beyond the allotment. So on the length of the rear of the building to the end of the 18-foot or 18-foot parking space, you have, at one point we had 24 and now we have 18 there in this particular one that we're looking at now to the rear of the building. So I drive, and maybe some folks in this meeting drive trucks. I've got a 20-footer. So, you know, Chair brought up a review of that because that's part of the special permit. You know, I wouldn't be visiting any friends over there on my truck with that particular design. Just kind of a mental note I'm making of myself as I look at that 18-foot asphalt where your cursor hand is there. Assumption is
I think, Ted, that it would work if we can push the bollards closer to the building. Then you're not really.
to that prior drawing. Yes, you had like 24 or so. That would make sense. Yeah.
Yeah, but
Okay.
you see what the problem is, Ted. We had the 24 there, and then now what we're being told is, well, you don't have the 20% open space.
Open space.
So
I
it's kind
understand.
of like you're squeezing a balloon at that point, and it's like, where do you take it from? So trying to go down to the 18 and use the rest of the overhang for where you would do it. And I think the bollards should have been moved in more
Sure.
to use that overhang more effectively, not in between bollards, you know?
Understood.
Now you're hitting plants though, so, but all right.
Yeah, we'd have to push up, we'd have to make those plants. I guess the first 6 feet would not be able to be either plant or bollard, but then the bollards and plants would have to be the remaining part of that.
Okay.
Would have to be just grass, I think, in that first 6 feet.
Anything else, Mr. Haley? I'm sorry.
Yeah, actually, would that be something, I don't know, don't take me literally for the term, but a concession for open space, or, you know, when we have to have this squeezing of the balloon battle between parking spaces and open spaces, is that?
Open space is zoning, and we don't have the ability to waive it, so that need a variance.
Yes, thank you. That's it. Appreciate it.
I know that we can't determine who lives in these buildings, right? But if it's a 3-bedroom apartment that we're going to offer through this building, that does increase the chances of children living there or whoever. I mean, are we able to suggest, say, speed bumps or, a safe walkway?
Since I brought it up, this was just off the cuff conversation having with the owner when we were talking about 3-bedroom. I don't want to give the impression necessarily that the whole sole decision on doing 3 bedrooms is because we see a family coming in of a mother and a father and 2 kids. A three bedroom could mean a lot of things. It could mean, 3 young adults, working adults living there. I just don't think we can honestly say, oh, just because you're doing 3-bedroom, that it's going to be a family. 2 bedrooms could be families too. A 1-bedroom could be a family.
I agree.
I agree with that, and I think that's where my concern is more than the families. It's that if you have 3 young adults there,
More people, more
there's probably
cars.
gonna be 2 or 3 cars per unit, right? And
Can you
then,
guys hear me?
Yep.
and then, so.
Hi, this is Jim Balsamo, 89 Stephanie Lane. I'm the property owner. I just wanted to touch upon, it seems like it keeps coming up. The reason for the 3 bedrooms is because I understand that the town is building 60+ units of 1 and 2 bedroom only. I own a property on Wall Street, which is the 3-family, all 3 bedrooms. As soon as I put one up for rent, I get over 30 applicants. There's no place for a single mom with 2 kids to live. I get so many applicants. I understand it's not ideal for kids. Everyone wants a backyard, but some of these people have no place to go. There's very limited amounts, unless they want to live in a college neighborhood, which they don't. So I know the demand's there. I know there's a bunch of 1 and 2 bedrooms going up, and these people are still blocked out. So if you're looking for a good for the community, I think that's a positive personally. And they're my best tenants. They really are. They're great. They want to be there for a while. That's what parks are for. People live in apartment buildings all the time, but there's really not a lot of viable options for them.
Thank you, Mr. Balsamo. Any other board, Mr. Haley, Ms. Rojas, Mr. McDonald, anybody else?
I'll
Yeah, I
just
guess-
reiterate that, like,
sorry.
I'm a single mom. I have kids, and that's why I usually am in favor of that. And I'm not saying that I'm not in favor of it now. I just want to make sure that we have safety in mind, right? And, in other buildings or complexes, they have a speed bump to slow people down, right?
Oh,
Just in case kids do
right.
come out and play.
I would not be opposed where the 21A is to put a speed bump. I'd also be fine with putting a sign up saying residents only beyond this point. I don't
Okay.
expect that to be for the commercial at all back there.
Thank you.
I agree with that, and I think it's a great idea.
Anything else at this point from the board?
Yeah, I guess I'll take my swing here.
Good, Mr. McDonald.
Well, first of all, Mr. Silva and Mr. Holmes, I'll just congratulate you. As Mr. Silva probably knows, I'm not typically a big fan of mixed-use buildings, but I think the design of this project is exactly what it's intended for, even though I do have criticisms which will come later. I think it's well designed. I appreciate that the entire first floor is commercial. And frankly, I like the design of the 2 residential floors. So with that out of the way, though, I do have a few questions to elaborate on. Oh, I would also say I'm gonna differ a little bit from my other board members. I think the 3-bedroom idea for the commercial units is a great idea. I think that's exactly what we need more of, because as Mr. I hope I don't butcher your last name, Mr. Bolsonaro said, we don't have enough of those in the town. We keep seeing these 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom projects, and I think we need more options for, families getting started out. So I think that's a great thing. I'm totally in support of that. So getting down to the nitty gritty though, when it comes to the passageway entrance, I am curious if because we've received correspondence from abutters, and frankly, it's a bit of a messy situation. I've never seen in a an access easement quite like this where it's split in half. And I don't think, if I had a guess, at the time the easement was granted, that this kind of project was ever envisioned. I'm wondering if the applicant would be willing to take full responsibility for the maintenance of that passageway.
I would.
I don't, Jim, you can speak to it yourself, but I mean, this was clearly set up to be shared responsibility for the passageway. And the way that they did it was to say, you have responsibility for the right side and the other one has responsibility for the left side, to make sure that that the burden didn't fall on one, it fell on both of them.
I completely agree with you, Mr. Silva. That's definitely how it was set up. But I believe that this is probably not what was envisioned at the time that easement was granted. So that's the only reason I'm asking if the applicant would be willing to
Mr.
take
McDonald,
responsibility for it.
Michael, can I make a suggestion?
Of course.
So I agree with what you're saying, right? That we need to make sure it's maintained and there's always viable access and everything else for safety and everything else. And we need to make sure they have the rights to put the new 4-inch water line in. We have to make sure they have the rights to have 18 feet passage at all the time. We have to make sure there's the restriction that a dumpster can't be there. I know that Mr. Silva's saying that it's in the deeds, but frankly, it's not our responsibility to do that deed research. It's our responsibility to be given that information through an attorney or somebody else that lays out the rights of this right away. I mean, I don't think anybody should be playing lawyer and saying, he has to maintain it, she has to maintain it, et cetera.
Oh, I completely agree, Mr. Driscoll. That's why I was asking, not demanding. It's certainly not a requirement.
But I think that's a hurdle we need to get over as a board first is what are the rights, what are the restrictions, what are the responsibilities of this right away before we can approve it and because they're proposing a new 4-inch water line. Do they have the right to dig that up? I don't know. Can they get the 4-inch water line back there? If they can't, is it still a viable project? So I think we need to find out what the rights are of that right away first.
Okay, I will move on from that. My other,
just my thought. I mean, you can just. I didn't mean to cut you off.
no, it's complete. Well, I believe Mr. Barsano implied that he would be willing to look into that at the very least. But my other concern is with the parking. Obviously, that's going to be a big issue with this project. We're short by a lot here. And Mr. Silva mentioned, you're kind of squeezing the balloon at a certain point, trying to strike a balance between open space, parking, and so on and so forth. But at a certain point, if you have to squeeze that balloon and you're not getting anything out of it, it might just not be the right project for the area. And I'm not saying that's the case here, but it's worth considering that if you have to make so many compromises and ask for large, you're asking to waive basically half the parking requirement. At a certain point, you might just be trying to put too much into too little. And I'm not saying that that's necessarily what's going on here, but you're kind of getting there. At a certain point, you cannot shunt every parking responsibility off to Central Square. If everyone did that, you're going to run into problems down the road. And that's not the fault of Mr. Silva. He's doing, the best for his client. But you're going to run into issues later, sooner or later, if you keep doing that. So those are my main concerns. But I mean, I'd like the project overall. I just think there's a few things to kind of hammer out. If that makes sense. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, could I address that?
Sure, Mr. Silva.
Okay. So go back to what I was talking about with Central Square. Okay. the way your rules and regulations are written, and Mr. Solari's on the line, so he could chime in if I got this wrong. But it now says in the regulations that whenever you have a change of use, that it's required for you to get site plan approval. Okay? So this means now that every storefront that's on Central Square that has 0 parking, okay, and that they require coming before you with a site plan for site plan approval. And I don't see how any one of them is going to produce 1 parking space that can be dedicated to them. And in the past, the more recent past, you've had a very successful business, the juice mill. He doesn't have a single space that's his own. He uses everything that's public parking. The barber shop downtown is doing well. They use all public parking. The coffee shop there, was it Renovation, Restoration Coffee or whatever? Same thing. All of these use it. You've got realtors downtown. Conway has a couple spaces. They're one of the few businesses that has some parking on the side. Everything that's downtown, for the most part, especially on this side of downtown, they don't have any parking. The nail company, the nail salon that's downtown, they don't have a single parking space.
But Mr. Silva, the way.
So
that-
why is it 43R has to have everything?
Mr.
Well,
Silva,
but-
to that, I would say, what does the R in 43R stand for?
What does it stand for? It means that a property was divided at one time. It had the same address and they divided it into 2.
So I'll just.
So they didn't have 2 numbers to give it. They gave it 43 and 43R.
If I can just say something, because we're going down a path that really doesn't apply to this project, right? So we have a project before us to expand a site and to change the use. It falls under the Central Business District parking. You either have to meet the parking on site. You need to meet the parking within 500 feet and have a non-extinguishable agreement for that parking, or you need to apply for a special permit where you demonstrate no net loss.
Okay.
Mr. Silva, we cannot consider, it doesn't say, I mean, if that's the way the town wants to go, we can change the zoning, but it doesn't say that we can count Central Square parking.
Could I weigh in for 1 second, Larry? Just
Yeah, go ahead.
And Mr. Chairman, so you say we're not demonstrating a net loss. So we spoke earlier and you asked a question about what the existing building, how many spots there was, and there was 3, right? We're now proposing what, Larry, 11 or 12? So we are taking care of the addition part on the building, which is the residential 2 stories above. We're taking care of that parking requirement. We're meeting that plus the 3 that were there. So does that count towards, that's not a net loss?
Well, the way I understand it is that in talking to different traffic engineers is that if that use was going to remain exactly the same on the first floor, manufacturing, then that would be fine. So net loss would say, hey, here's my required parking for what existed. Here's my required, so the way I understand it is you say, required for what was existing, provided for what was existing, and then you take a look at, was there a net loss? Okay. And then you do the same thing for what you're proposing, and that net loss can't be greater. So if 10 is, if there's gonna be a restaurant down there now and you need 10 spots, but the manufacturing only needed 3, they can't, that is a net loss because it's a different use and there's a net loss of parking on site.
Okay, so you had a juice mill that used to be a glass
Well,
place,
Mr.
college
Silva,
town glass.
we're not talking about the juice mill. We have what we can, I think we should go.
But you've got to apply these rules to every property that's in this district. So you got to be careful as to what you're saying. If you wanted to condition this,
The juice mill has never come before us.
if you wanted to condition this to go along with that criteria that you just said, that said when the commercial use is being applied for, then it had to be demonstrated that there was no net loss, or they would have to find
If
that deeded parking, then I would think that maybe that's a better way to go.
If Mr. Solari determined downtown is a change of use, they would have to come before us for a site plan.
But your rules don't say change of use anymore. Any change, well, I'm sorry. It says any change of use.
but you keep talking about businesses have changed their use downtown.
Yes.
We have not had one of those come before us, so I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, that's what your rules say. You're saying you're going by your rules. That's your rules.
Can you name one business that the use changed and that came before us? I don't, Mr. Solari hasn't sent anything to us, so I don't know.
Somebody just approached me for one, Steve, didn't they?
So,
All right, change of use goes by the building code. Okay, so a service business, you also got to base it on under 50. So if, let's say that the karate studio was where now the new hairdresser went, it's still the same use. It's under 50. It's a B use group. It's not a change of use under the building code. So, and we don't have bylaws that strictly say a change of use automatically needs a site plan review. If, for instance, the juice mill went in, like you said, it's a service business that went into a place that sold glass. Sold equipment. It's under 50. It's a takeout business. It's not a restaurant business. It's a takeout. That's why the seating, they're allowed to have like a few seats when you're at a takeout. But let's say the juice mill wanted to put apartments above. Good, perfect. If the juice mill all of a sudden decided to say, I'm going to put 6 units above, now we're going to need parking for those 6 units. Now, the warehouse, the place that was there before was manufacturing / warehouse because it was an upholstery building. Now, if all of a sudden that becomes a retail store or a restaurant, that is a total change of use. The other businesses,
right, and I think that could be dealt with at that time.
So the other businesses are pre-existing businesses along our historic district that are very small. They have they don't even meet the square footage for most of the bathrooms that they carry. So they fall under a very small status when it comes to change of use. Now, if a restaurant wanted to go in where the hairdresser is, that would be a change of use. That would require a site plan review.
Mr. Solari, just to clarify that, just so I know, you're saying it's because it's a change of use as in what the use group is per code? A B use versus an A assembly. Is that what you're alluding to?
Correct.
Okay.
You're going from manufacturing warehouse to retail.
right, and
Totally different.
And we have a parking code for each use now, so.
Right.
Let's move on. I'd like to get to public comment before, if there's no more board comments. I think what we're gonna do is, I personally, I like the idea of mixed use here, like Mr. McDonald. I think we're trying to squeeze a lot in here. I think I don't know how we could, personally, if you can't even satisfy the needs of the 5 units, I don't know how we could grant the 6 unit. I don't know how we could demonstrate that's in the public good. I think there's going to be a tough time reducing the parking to this level, as other members have said as well. So I think it's important that we do a site walk and get familiar with the site. And, maybe in the meantime, the developer can find more off-street parking if he wants to keep the project at this scale. But are there any other board members that have questions at this point?
Sorry, just one more thing, Mr. Driscoll. So I really don't have too much of an issue with the size of the project, generally speaking, aside from the parking constraints. Is there any thought to turning the 3rd floor into 2 units instead of 3 and doing kind of more of a penthouse kind of thing on the 3rd floor? That might help alleviate the situation somewhat with the parking requirement?
I would have to refer that to Mr. Balsamo and whether that is something he would want to explore. We've talked about a lot of different things. There is certainly, I think, from his development standpoint, there's a financial break, as there usually is, of what works for him from a financial standpoint. So I would have to leave that up to him. I don't want to answer that. So
Right.
I understand.
Mr. Brian?
Yeah, I just a general comment for the board. So the difference for a 2-bedroom and a 3-bedroom, we require 2 spaces per unit. But for 1-bedrooms, it would be 1 space per unit, just for that clarification.
No,
So
it doesn't differentiate downtown. It's one.
oh, you're right. I
it's 1 and
apologize.
1, 3, so.
Yep, I'm sorry. I was looking at a different ordinance.
All right, can we go, if everybody in the board, I know there's a lot of members of the public here, I'd like to go to public comment because they may make us think a different way or whatnot. Are we good on the board side?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I'll open it up now. I know we did, just to confirm with the board that we all did receive 3 pieces of public correspondence in regards to this project. Is that correct? Mr. O'Brien, just the 3?
That is correct, and I also made them available on the public portal.
All right, so those have been received by the board. They were issued to all the members. We're not going to read them in to the record this evening, but just for the record, we have received them. And if anybody is here from the public that wrote those letters that wants to touch on them, please feel free to do so. So I'll open it up to public comment at this time if anybody would like to speak.
Please just notify me in the chat or raise your virtual hand. I believe it's under React. Oh, I think we have a David Moore clapping. So I'll let him talk.
Mr. Moore, go ahead. Just state your name and address for the record, please.
Okay, David Moore. I live at 54 Flag Street, but I'm one of the trustees of 39 Central Square, the Masonic Lodge. And the lodge pretty much is looking forward to improvement of the property. It's been an eyesore. It's been tough for a long time. So we're looking forward to it. But I've heard all the arguments tonight. I'm not going to rehash them. I just want to state that, as I did in my letter, it's just too, in my opinion, and the opinion of many members of the lodge, it is far too intensive a development of that site. And in talking to a couple of people, they brought up an important point of many of the other parking spaces in town. You can see before you pull into the parking lot if there's a space. This one you're not going to be able to see. So can you imagine driving down the right of way through whoever might be walking on that right of way to get out to access the Central Square, whatever, and then you get down into the back here and there's no parking spaces. So what do? How are you going to get out? If you're really good and you got a small car, you may be able to do a U-turn in that reduced parking space access area. If not, you're going to have to back up on that narrow roadway, 2 90-degree turns, and get out into some of the other parking area if there's a place to turn around there. And if there happens to be say a UPS truck or a postal truck or whatever making a delivery to Bridgewater Trophy, it's going to be quite a traffic jam. So I think that's going to be a real big issue, the actual use of that limited area. I have a copy of the right-of-way here, but as you said before, you're not legal counsel. I'm not a legal counsel, but that right-of-way has been identical. I've looked at all the deeds going back about 150 years, and they're all worded pretty much the same thing. They're in my opinion, they're pretty vague. But I think what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to get a legal opinion. Some of the abutters will have to get a legal opinion and to see where it really goes. What are the rights of Mr. Balsamo? What are the rights of the people who own 10 feet on either side of this going down? The handicap access issue, I also checked with the access board, and Mr. Balsamo's representatives are correct. As the building stands now, he does not have to provide handicapped access. He doesn't have to provide an elevator or a lift of some kind to get to the residential units. However, if the building is found unsuitable to carry 2 additional stories, and the building has to come down, then it would require handicap access to the floors above, at least 1 unit. So that would be a problem. I would imagine that would, I realize Mr. Balsamo's got an investment here. He's got to make his numbers work, and he's got a hell of a lot of burdens in front of him right now with water lines and sewer connections and everything else. So that's something that probably ought to be looked at. I don't think that original structure is going to be able to carry 2 floors above. It's an old brick building, triple width brick wall, probably 150 years old. So it's probably going to need some serious steel reinforcing to carry those 2 floors above. And there's a storm drain on the property, and I haven't heard anybody talk about that. We don't know where that storm drain goes to, and it may be an issue, it may not be an issue, but we're gonna have part of that parking lot. Well, historically, there's a lot of water has gone into that, and I'm not aware that it's created a lot of flooding, but I think we ought to address that. Where does that storm drain go to? Yeah, I guess that's about it. The lodge is very considerate, very concerned about the amount of use that this place would have. Now, there was some concern about a three-bedroom unit might be better off for children and so forth. Yeah, where are the children going to play? But if you rented it to three individuals, and in 20 years of building inspector in Bridgewater, I can only relate to you the horror stories of three college guys in that structure. Animal house parties, cars constantly fighting with parking and so forth. It's a problem with parking right now, keeping the college kids out of there. It impacts the building, it impacts the lodge, it impacts the businesses there. And just because you put up a sign, tenant parking only, well, that doesn't always work. They ignore the signs, and it will be a constant headache. So to sum it all up, our feeling is that it's too intensive a development for this property. And we hope that the town will take consideration of that and make a decision that hopefully everybody can live with.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Is there anybody else from the public that wishes to speak?
I do not see anyone in the chat, nor do I see anyone with their virtual hands raised at this time, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
I'll give everyone a second.
So back to the board. At this point, we would like Mr. Geller and I think Mr. O'Brien in his memo both mentioned that a site walk would be a good idea. Is that something we would like to schedule?
Seems like the logical course of action to me.
Absolutely.
Is
Would
that
you like me to be Jim Balsamo, would you like me to be present?
we have to, if there's gonna be more than 3 members, we have to post it. We definitely need permission to walk on your property.
Granted.
We'll post the meeting and the time, if you give us permission, and then if you want to attend, obviously that's up to you.
You have my permission and I'd love to meet you there.
Okay, so maybe what we can do is, Mr. O'Brien during the next couple of days can poll the board when they have their schedules in front of them and, let people know, and then we can post it on the website.
Yeah,
within
so our
yeah.
next meeting, if we were to continue this, would be to January 15th. I am also considerate of holidays, being the time of year we're at. But I'll do a poll of the board members. I'll reach out, see when the best available time for everyone is. And then from there, we'll be able to schedule a meeting that would be properly posted. I'm hoping to do at least 1 week in advance of that date. So,
Just before we go there, just to kind of sum it up, whether they're 1, 2, or 3 bedrooms, I mean, that's up to the developer what they want to do.
yeah, I would leave it up
Mr.
to.
Brian, can I please finish? So
Yep.
whether they're 1, 2, or 3 bedrooms, that's up to the developer. But my big concern is we already have a site that can't handle the 5 units in the commercial. So they're already asking for a bonus, but the site can't handle the 5 in the commercial. So I think that's a difficult thing for us to do.
Yeah, I just wanted to
The
clarify.
Can I just finish though?
Yeah.
The lack of parking is a concern as well. And then obviously the variance is gonna be needed for the open space, but we can see all that on the, we can talk about that as well on the sidewalk. So, Mr. O'Brien, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to talk about the site walk because I got a message in there. Being that it's a posted meeting and typical of site walks, members of the public are are available to join us. We just want, I do kind of stay at those meetings, and I do state as part of the record of those meetings, kind of the rules and guidelines, being respectful of being on someone else's property. But also in consideration that the board doesn't deliberate at these site visits. It's just, this is that, this is there. We've done typical site visits. And additionally, Mr. Chair, we've had some additional hands raised, as well as a person in the chat reaching
That's
out.
all right, yeah, Donna Jewel. Mr. Jewel, are you?
Hi, thank you. Yes, I had my hand raised. I'm sorry that you didn't see it. Donna Jewel, 50 Keith Place. But my husband and I own 3 properties, 3 parcels that abut this project. Could somebody tell me clearly how many right-of-ways we're dealing with here?
Mr. Silva, could you answer that for the,
Donna, it's one it's one 20-foot wide passageway. It's divided in the deeds for 43 and 43R. It's divided as 10-foot strips and making up the total 20. And the reason why it's identified that way is to say who's responsible for maintaining each half.
Okay,
But it's
then
it's one right away, 20 feet wide. And then it extends a little bit longer on one side than the other.
okay, what about at the entrance, Central Square to 43 and 43R? There's one piece that is in a deed for the Masonic Lodge and one piece that we have the deed to.
You have, that is a question that I've asked myself about, that is because there is the piece there that has the parking spaces on it.
Correct.
But I haven't seen language that said that those parking spaces had the same rights to the right of way. It could be, but I just didn't see it in the deed.
Yeah, it's there.
Yeah, okay.
So it sounds like there's 4 right-of-ways involved in this, one for 43, one for 43R, one for the Masonic Lodge, and one for our parking spots. That's kind of the way I'm seeing it now. And I don't know if there's been any measurements taken to see that if at the beginning, coming in from Central Square, is it wide enough for cars for 2 large cars, like say 2 trucks, to pass each other going in opposite directions, with one making the swing off of the common into that back area?
It's no different than what's currently happens now. It's a
Well,
right
it
of way
doesn't
that
it
trucks
doesn't
use and
happen
cars
now.
use it.
Yeah, usually what happens now is if you have 2 large trucks coming or large vehicles, one has to pull way over to the side.
It would be the same.
Pardon me?
It would still be the same.
Okay, so it wouldn't be like it wouldn't identify them like as a roadway, so cars could pass each other safely.
It's a passageway 20-foot wide, and that's deemed to be greater than the 18 feet that's required by the town to allow for 2-way traffic.
See, our concern is that with the amount of units there, both residential and commercial, it's going to be a lot of traffic, kind of like a small subdivision, where if you were putting in a subdivision elsewhere in town, you'd be required to put in a roadway, sidewalks, the whole thing to have it operate safely. We can't see how that's going to work with that amount of cars. It becomes a road, not just a right of way, which was originally designed for foot traffic, not for that much vehicle traffic. It's a concern for safety as well as traffic. And then I did hear at the town council meeting last night, Mr. Rulli's presentation, he showed 3 different options for the new traffic pattern downtown, which would have 2-way traffic on 2 sides of the common, and then trying to make that swing in with there and cars coming out of there in these kind of numbers. Seems like it could be a disaster. When it was Shawmut Upholstery, there were only a couple of vehicles. When it was the Frito chip company before that. There were a couple of trucks went in and out, sort of like a contractor bay. I'm concerned that this right of way is gonna be used as a road and not as a, right of way. When does the need for a road get triggered in our bylaws?
That's, I mean, I think, we have subdivision rules and regulations if somebody doing a 1 to 4 lot subdivision but we don't, I mean, we don't have any, I think this is an unusual site with the right of way, so.
To add to that, Mr. Driscoll and Mr. O'Brien, would it be appropriate at this point to perhaps involve our town council in this?
Well, I
to-
think it's, and I mean, I think it's up to the applicant who's applying for this permit to demonstrate with a legal opinion and legal documents that they have the rights to do what they're proposing. I don't think it's, maybe I'm wrong, Shay, it's not the town's job to do that.
I would just welcome any information on deeds, whether it be on the applicant sides. I know that there's been concerns from abutters per se as well too, but I think verbally stating all these is great. But I think having it in the possession of the board and staff to review, and if we want to go to a point of asking town council, town legal counsel to review such documentation, I'm more comfortable proceeding with that rather than kind of just going back and forth on what it
Yeah, I
says on
mean,
there.
And I
My-
think in the past when and I'm not speaking from Attorney Rollins, but I think what we'll probably have to do is have the applicant do the legal work, and then maybe Mr. Rollins can review the product. I don't think Mr. Rollins Attorney Rollins wants to represent the applicant in determining their rights. I think what we should do is ask the applicant to demonstrate legally that they have the legal rights to do what they're proposing.
Well, yeah,
that's sorry, Shane.
go ahead, Michael.
Sorry. That's my thoughts exactly, Pat. My point was more so, I don't know about you, but I'm not particularly qualified to read legal opinions. So if we do get one submitted about this, it's because this is pretty complicated, to speak bluntly.
Well,
Um,
even then, too, Michael, there are matters outside the realm of this board. I think, like Pat said earlier, we're looking at it from a circulation and right standpoint, but there are private property matters between parties beyond the town that they need to discuss with one another. I think that our jurisdiction is looking at site plan review and safety and circulation as implied by the board members, but sometimes not necessarily the legal rights between certain private parties and us making the determining factor of private party easements and stuff. I think for informational purposes, it's nice to see everyone's deeds and what rights people have. But we can look based on the existing conditions plan that there is a 20-foot passageway that is being utilized by this property that doesn't have any frontage and has been utilized. The context of what is going to be there, the building has been used and the circulation on and off site has existed. I understand the perception of a truck or two trucks at the same time occurring, but that could occur now with the, a light manufacturing facility currently existing. So
I agree with you in large part, Mr. O'Brien, but I don't think I can, in good faith, approve a project where we don't have certainty as to the access to residential units on that project.
no, I don't disagree.
And I think the other issue we have to look at is we look at safety and circulation, just as Mr. O'Brien said. Zoning says they need a 24-foot right away behind the parking spaces, 18-foot drive aisle widths. So, I'm concerned about that corner of the building basically connecting to curbing. I mean, you could literally have a vehicle driving right up against that building. I don't know how safe that is, and that was a comment in one of the letters we received today. And the other thing too is if there is 18 feet there, I'll believe Mr. Silva, but I believe it's Bridgewater Trophy that occupies 43. I mean, there is, in the right of way, there is a bollard, a gas meter, and the door swings open into that right of way. So I understand that exists now. I understand there's traffic patterns there now, but I think that the intensity of this use is that's been brought up, you know, the number of residential units along with the commercial use, traffic is going to increase there, and we just need to make sure it's safe, so. But I, back to you, Mr. McDonald, I think they need to provide evidence legally that they have the rights to do everything that they're proposing to do there.
My
Well
oth-
said, Mr. Driscoll, yeah. I don't want to set up a situation where we're setting the town up for some kind of future litigation, which, I mean, this is a very complex project. I don't think it's a bad one necessarily, but it's a very complex one.
And we
I
can,
want to make sure we just do it right.
so, and I know Mrs. Jewell's still trying to talk, and I apologize, but the other thing we could do, Mr. McDonald, is after the site walk, we could, if we've, you know, we could always ask Mr. Rollins what we should ask for, because, you know, that would give us some guidance as well.
That would satisfy. I just want to make sure he's tagged in and aware of the situation, so we're not scrambling from behind if
Absolutely.
problems arise down the road.
Back to public comment, Mrs. Jewell, I'm sorry.
Thank you. For the commercial space, where is the employee parking?
That would be part of the parking
Oh.
calculation provided and also on Central Square.
Through the
Okay.
chair. I'm sorry, through the chair.
Yeah, Mr. O'Brien.
Yeah, it would depend on the use. Certain uses don't necessarily require employee parking. It would simply be based on parking code, but I guess the implication is that there would be employee parking on site based on just kind of it really up to the owner.
Okay, so we have other people.
Okay, and then a comment was made a couple of times that no businesses on the common provide their own parking. I just want to go on record that we do for both of our businesses, for our tenants, as well as for our auto repair business. We do provide our own parking. We don't utilize space around the common. And I do agree with Ms. Rojas's statement about children. Not so much with the playing aspect, but if they tend to kind of want to walk down that pathway to the common, safety would be a big concern of mine with young children walking, whether it be to school or where they're going in that area, if we're talking about 3-bedroom apartments to that extent. And it just feels like we're trying to put too much into that. I like the idea that it's going to be rehabbed, but it seems like the comments kept coming up that, you know, we have to squeeze this and squish that. Might not be the right size. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We've had Fellowship Masonic Lodge waiting for a while, so I apologize. Just please state your
Okay.
name and address for the record, please.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes, sir.
Just state your
Okay.
Name and
How you doing?
address.
My name's Francis Zanowski. I'm actually head of the lodge, and I'm also a trustee of the building.
Just
So,
state your address, please, sir.
well, 39 Central Square, one of the abutters.
Good, thank you.
The answer, Ms. Jewell's question, or the question that people had about two big vehicles being able to pass in different directions, no. When we use the lodge, we park on the side of that building, and you cannot fit two vehicles going in opposite directions without hitting whatever vehicle's parked on the side of that building. And that's our property. It would be unsafe for that, and it would cause a huge, from my understanding, when the right of way was done, it was, you know, I mean, there was no residential parking there. There was no residence there, you know, except for the building that Miss Jewell owns across from us. You know, it was all business parking. And the manufacturer, the fabric guy in the back, who we know very well, he didn't have anybody parked there except for his truck. So you know, now you're adding, I don't know, 17 spaces back there, which I don't know how the heck you're going to fit 17 spaces back there, because we can barely fit a truck back there. You know, turns into an unsafe use of the right of way. And I think there's gonna be more problems with traffic and everything else, than everybody's, than, I mean, it looks great on paper, but when you actually look at the site and you see how tight it is back there, it can't happen.
Thank
Are
you.
you all set, sir? Thank you.
Yep. We have one more public comment, Mr. Chair. That's John Sylvia.
All right, well, okay. Is that a chat or is that somebody trying to, I see
It
Johnson.
was someone trying to talk. John, are you available?
Mr. Sylvia, you're still muted if you're trying to talk. There you go.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Yep, we can hear you, John.
Well, thank you. John Sylvia, 43 Central Square. My son, Michael, and I run Bridgewater Trophy. So we see it on a daily basis, that the parking issues that are incurred in the area. People try to park in the lot already. They come from everywhere. And it's a problem. There's just not enough parking for anybody in the area. The size of this project is very big. And I don't know how the people are going to come zooming around the corner and not cause a safety situation with our business, for sure. Because you're taking a passageway, a right-of-way that was put in the deeds when there were no cars. There were no cars 100 years ago. Correct? So now you're going to have people stepping out of our door into traffic, which has never happened before. You're going to have people, a lot of cars. It's not going to be feasible. And, there's nowhere near enough parking for a commercial business that they're talking about. I think you said there's 2 spots for the commercial business. Where are their employees going to park? There's no answer for that. The apartments, I just don't know where the people are going to park. Snow removal. In 2015, in the major storm, if everybody remembers it, that part just out back was just had so much snow in it. There's no place to put snow around there. You have to truck it out. So, I mean, there's a lot of things to think about, and it's a very big project. You're putting a square peg in a round hole, like squishing it in, like Larry's talking about the balloon. The balloon is about to pop. So that's what I have to say, and I agree with what Donna said and Dave and a lot of the other folks. It's a big project, and there's just not enough room. Thank you.
Thank you.
So,
All right.
So just real quick, just listening to the questions about the right of way.
Okay,
Could I ask you a question first? I'm sorry.
yeah, sure.
So just with the questions in regards to the right of way, so there appears to be a lot of work proposed in that right of way. Are you sure that doing all this work, those businesses could continue to have vehicular passage back to them, and those residents back there that utilize that right of way will be able to be maintained to do all these upgrades to this right of way that you need to do?
To answer that question, when utility work is done anywhere, it sometimes causes some problems while that work's being done. But with regard to the right of way, I just got 2 comments. The comment that was made by the gentleman from the Masonic Lodge, the area that he's talking about that he's actually parking. If he's parking along the edge of the building, they're parking within the passageway, which is not a designated area for parking. Okay, just having said that, now you asked what the deeds actually say. So the deed for 43R says, or however the same may be bounded, described or measured, with the right to use in common with other abutters for the purpose of passing and repassing a 20-foot passageway from said described estate to the highway. That's how it's worded.
And I believe it says that, but I think we still need,
But I don't know if there's anything else, but if that's pretty clear as to what it is. I don't know if there's much of an interpretation that's even possible for that. They all say that you have the right to use it in common with, meaning if you're adjacent to it, you have the right to use it in common with. It's 20-foot wide, 10-foot maintenance goes with 43, 10-foot maintenance goes with 43R to make sure that it's maintained over time.
But the other thing too, and I think the reason we need the opinion is you're also proposing a lot of improvements to it. Do you have the rights to do those improvements? I'm not sure.
The improvements are just utility changes.
Right.
Yes, but do you have the right to only improve half of the passageway at one time?
Yes. No, you have the responsibility. 43 has a responsibility for maintaining the 10 foot of it, and 43R has the responsibility to maintain the other 10 foot. That's to make sure that the 20-foot wide passageway is properly maintained, and who's responsible for maintaining it. That's the way both deeds are written.
I think, Mr.
That's just to clarify that for you, but I think you want to set up a site meeting, right?
If Mr. Balsama's trying to speak again, I believe. Mr.
Just real quick, I have a copy of everyone's
Your
deeds.
name and address. for
Oh,
the
I'm
record.
sorry. Jim Balsamo.
And if you have a copy of that stuff, I mean, I think it's great that you're gonna tell us you have it, but if you could submit it so we have it.
Yep. Jim Balsamo, 89 Stephanie Lane. I have a copy of everyone's deeds. I can bring them to Shane tomorrow, and he can post them or disperse them accordingly. It clearly states who does have rights to that right away. And if anyone's questioning whether it would work with 6 extra units back there, it's working right now with 5 units who do not have a right on that right of way.
So I think
I don't think my rights of the right of way should be compromised because someone else is using that right of way, which does not have the right of way on it.
And I think that's why we need, personally, I think that's why we need a legal opinion referencing the deeds. I think it'd be helpful if you get the deeds to us, but I don't think myself and Mr. O'Brien, are qualified to do deed research and make sure that means what it says, because the legal jargon can be confusing sometimes. So I think the most appropriate thing to do would be to have somebody review that and provide us with a legal opinion that you have the rights to do everything that you're stating you want to do. But
I think that would be just in the definition of right of way.
that I'm not sure, so. Any other board members of public comment before we go to schedule a site walk?
I don't have any hands raised, Mr. Chair.
So I'll revisit something earlier. If it's okay with you, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
Mr. Balsamo, yeah, as Mr. Driscoll said, obviously we're not qualified to answer these whole right-of-way questions. But I would just like clarification. If this project were to be approved, would you be willing to take over maintenance for that 20-foot passageway as a sole responsibility?
I would have no problem plowing and taking care of it. I would hate to take on responsibility only if someone else gets hurt on it. That's my only reservation. I haven't researched it.
I understand completely.
That's my only reservation of it.
I mean,
Okay,
Mr.
excellent, thank you.
Mr. McDonald, too, that's somebody else's land. They would have to agree to that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's,
No,
that's
I understand completely, but it's a public hearing, and those people that own that land can view this hearing. So
No, I agree. Mr. Moore, go ahead. Just state your name and address again for the record, please.
David Moore, 54 Flag Street, and I'm one of the trustees of the lodge. One thing, I agree that we need a legal interpretation of the right of way because it was written 150 years ago. So we need somebody to take a good look at it on both sides, no doubt about it. One thing that didn't come up, we talked a little bit about, or you folks talked about using off-site parking. What it hasn't come up, the last parking plans that have been shown, granted they're only conceptual plans, but I've talked to some people and they want to remove diagonal parking along the common. That's gonna reduce the available parking by 60%. And that's gonna have a significant impact on the businessmen. And now you're talking about putting in something else that's gonna require off-site parking, and the parking isn't gonna be there if this plan goes through. And we all know that something's gotta happen around the common, no doubt about it. But you can't count on what's maybe not be there until we get some kind of an agreement between all the property owners around the common for, as Mr. Rulli has used the term, shared parking. And I'm a big supporter of that, but this type of project is premature because we don't know what's going to happen in the future, but we'd be given a very intensive use right now, and we're concerned about it.
All right, thank you.
Okay, any other public comment before we go back to the board and try to schedule a site walk?
The only thing is during your site walk,
No, Mr. Balsamo, go.
I'm sorry,
Hang on,
Mr.
just a second.
Balsamo, yeah.
Yeah.
If you schedule the site walk, I request you don't do it between Christmas and New Year,
All right, thank you,
a
sir.
week of gone.
Sure thing.
All right, and Mr. Tanzi, you have not reviewed the latest plans. The comments were all based off the plans prior to 12/10, correct?
That's correct. I did start review of the current plan, but I have not completed that review as of yet.
And if you'd like to attend the site walk with us, that might be helpful as well. Have you already viewed the property out there? Or do you need to go again?
I have been out there. It probably wouldn't hurt to take another look.
All right, if there's no other public comment or board comments, is there any board comments? All right, and I guess the plan would be to have Mr. O'Brien circulate some dates with the board. We can get back to him with the majority who can attend. If there's 3 or more of us, we'll post it. We'll probably post it regardless, so abutters know if they want to join.
Yeah, we'd probably be looking at the week of the 6th of January. So I'll probably post dates and times there. Just based on Mr. Balsamo's request.
And just so you know, the abutters that are on here, we don't notify you of that site walk. That's your responsibility to pay attention to the posting on the town website or contact Mr. O'Brien.
Yeah, I'll send you over the information when requested, but yeah.
All right, so do we want to continue this to our next meeting on January 15th? Is that good with the applicant?
Yes.
Is there any board discussion or a motion to do so?
I guess, Mr. Chair, I would raise the possibility that we move it to the second meeting in that month. Just so we have time to evaluate our findings, give feedback to the applicant.
So
Right.
Michael, we don't have, that is the second meeting of January. We have, our meetings are based on the first and third Wednesdays of the month, so our next meeting is the 15th. Because we wouldn't have a meeting on the 1st.
Right. In that case, I guess I would suggest we possibly consider moving it to the first meeting of the next month.
Well, let me just ask a question, Mr. So, Mr. Solari and Mr. Tanzi. And Mr. Tanzi, I know you haven't been able to review it, but in our zoning, we say drive aisle widths can be 12, can be 8 feet. But in our parking code, when you have 90-degree parking, it's a 24-foot depth behind that parking space. That's what's required, correct?
Yes, it is.
So if they need to get a variance, they might as well get the variance for the whole thing and not because you still need a variance, so. All right, but I just want, so it is the 24-foot is required behind the 90-foot parking, and that's pavement, that's not mulch or trees or things like that, correct?
Correct, it's pavement.
All right, so What, make a motion to continue this to 1:15 if the board so wishes. Anyone?
Motion to continue to 1:15.
By Mr. Haley? Do a second?
Can second that.
By Ms. Rojas? Any discussion? Okay, so I'll take the roll. Ms. Rojas?
Yes.
Mr. Geller?
Yes.
Mr. Haley?
Yes.
Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item 4. This is in regards to the request for a minor change to the subdivision pursuant to rules and regulations 8.7. This has to do with Bridgewater Preserve, Childbridge Farm. We did ask the applicant at the last meeting to identify those areas to be removed with spray paint markings. I went out there Monday. I think Mr. Geller went out there last week, I believe. Well, you questioned it last week or some.
I questioned if it was done yet.
I went
So
up there yesterday. They hadn't done it yet.
it was not done, so I believe the applicant has requested to be pushed off to our 1:15 meeting. Is that correct?
That is correct. I talked to Lee Castanetti earlier this week. He had indicated that they had the intent to do the striping, but the weather got in the way. So he's hoping that this item could be pushed off to the January 15th meeting, where hopefully he would have the work done by then, weather permitting.
Okay, thank you. So do we want to make a motion to continue that to 1:15?
So moved.
By Mr. McDonald, do we have a second?
Second.
By Mr. Geller, any discussion? Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
Ms. Rojas,
Yes.
Mr. Haley,
Yes.
Mr. Geller?
Yes.
Okay, let's move to 1:15. Item 5, this is board business request for lot release from Covenant, Wampanoag Estates, AKA Hiawatha Trail. Mr. O'Brien, do you want to give us an update on that? And then I believe, is the applicant with us this evening?
Yes, so we have the applicant present, so they could present. But we got a request for lot releases. I believe the last time we talked about this project was February. I wasn't working for the town yet, but that would be February 2022. Whereas the board approved the ability for the applicant to have all lots released from covenant with the receipt of surety. During that time, we haven't received surety. So the applicant's coming back before the board with a different request. They're going to present in terms of work being completed and the intent of the request. So I'll leave it up to them.
So I was confused with the request, and I can turn it over to the applicant in a minute, but I saw a handwritten letter from the engineer. And I saw an old bond request that looks like we approved. Has there been any other bond requests performed, or has anything else been done at this point?
Not that I'm aware of, Mr. Chair. I don't think we have.
I'll turn it, if the applicant is here, I'll turn it over to the applicant. Is there anybody here to represent the project?
I don't know if you can hear me. I'm Marion McKettrick. I'm an attorney, and the applicant is also here. That's Jeff Cutter. So I can briefly explain the request. Jeff Cutter is here, and he may want to give you more information.
Sure, go ahead, ma'am.
Okay, I wrote 2 letters. Letters to the board. Mr. Cutter asked me to assist him with this. My understanding is pretty much what you have just stated, which is that there is a bond amount that has been determined. I believe it's about $340,000. This is a 12-lot subdivision, originally approved in 2007, came back to the board, I think, in 2018 with some modifications. It now has a new developer, new owner. Jeff Cutter is the trustee for the trust. It's the LTL Trust. And it's Jeff Cutter now who's has completed some work, what I call infrastructure work, consisting of land clearing, road grading, installing drainage systems, first coat of pavement, and creating a wetland replication area. The reason he's coming in today to ask whether you would consider releasing some of these lots, either I came in originally with my letter, I asked for 2. We discussed the way the lots are arranged and where the soil is that would have to be moved. He's now saying he could work with 4 if you're willing to do that. I don't even know whether you're going to consider doing 2. So the reason for the request is that he has another development in Bridgewater, which is, I believe, just waiting for its final approval. And he has $200,000 with the town on a bond for that, which he's expecting to be released in the spring. The reason he'd like to do some work now on these initial lots 1 through 4 is that the electricity provider is willing to come in and connect electricity, but there have to be foundations on the lots in order to do that. And he can't do that work without a covenant release for at least 2 or perhaps 4 of the lots. He is expecting to come back in the spring and be able to pay the bond or whatever amount of bond you feel is appropriate at that point. He's expecting to have the $200,000 release the town's holding. He would probably be applying that to part of the payment. So it's a combination of the ability to get electricity in now and the desire to do it. The fact that he has done some infrastructure work, which does have a value of approximately $91,000, which is about 27% of the bond. The bond is calculated by figuring out how much the infrastructure work is worth, and it's a security so that it gets finished, even if the developer, you know how the bond works. I don't have to explain that. So we're just here to ask you whether you would consider doing this. If the board does not want to even consider it, that's fine. I haven't brought this type of request in Bridgewater before. I work mostly in Milton, but I am familiar with the use of a bond and the subdivision process and the subdivision regulations. So we'd be interested in knowing whether you would even consider the request. Jeff Cutter is here, and he might want to add some more detail about the reasons for the request if the board is willing to let him do that.
Sure. I think though, and Mr. Solari and Mr. O'Brien can help with this, but we really can't tie 2 neighbors together, especially one. I think one is a comprehensive permit, correct?
Sure, they're not. I'm not suggesting they should be tied together.
And we can't hold
Practicality.
the developer accountable for one neighborhood.
Sure.
On the other one, we've run into that before where we said, hey, maybe we shouldn't give this guy permits because he didn't complete this, and we've always been given the legal opinion that they're standalone projects. So, I mean, I think what we need to do is we need to have an updated bond calculation before we can release any lots. But in the past, we have released one like model home lot, so to speak, where there's no occupancy permit that can be granted, but we've worked with developers in the past that have not put up a bond. I don't know if the board would be willing to consider that. I just want to make sure we're being consistent, Mr. O'Brien. That's what we've done in the past, Mr. Solari.
Yep.
But we've never released more than that without an updated bond calculation and posted bond.
And with the permission of the board, I'd like to.
Mr. Cutter, I know you're trying to speak, but you're muted, sir.
I need to know whether that's of practical use to.
And just state your name and address. Oh, you're muted again.
All right, can you hear me now?
Okay,
Yeah.
Just state your name.
It's Jeff Cutter, in this case, with BWH2 is the name of the trust of the property. No, we're not trying to have, we're not in any way trying to hold the two together. It's just more of a, Marion was suggesting, you know, I worked on Pratt Town Meadows. I've worked with the town and Mr. Solari and Greg for many years. And, you know, I'm not trying to circumvent anything. It's just, we can't get National Grid in this case to come in and bring power to the development. And with the weather where it is, I don't actually believe I'll be able to work on more than one, maximum 2 houses over the winter if I can get the foundation in. But if I can get the foundation in, And before the weather gets too rough, that would be a big help in getting National Grid to start their process of getting us power. And then hopefully by the time the weather breaks or the winter breaks, we'd be able to move at a more efficient and normal pace. It's maybe neither here and there to you, but with Pratt Town, I know I had 9 houses up and going and no power for almost a year, so I'm a little paranoid about that. I'd like to try to get National Grid in here before I start putting houses up. I do have temporary power for that I can do construction, but I do not have any power to the individual lots. And so
I mean, the other way too is we already released all 8 if you post a bond, correct?
it's 12, and that's true. I could post the bond. And in regards to the bond, and you asked for recalculation, I have been in touch with Greg, and I had a conversation. I did send him
The T and K quotes.
the T&T quotes, but also the modest amount of work that on that very old, it's 3 years old. When you came up with that quote last time, there were a few things that were done since then. So that number, as I suggested, probably is lower today. But yeah, I mean, look, the reality is, for me to give you 300,000, I know you don't tie 2 together. There's another couple 100,000 over there. I can't really start building multiple houses right now. It doesn't make a lot of financial sense to be tying up that kind of money and not being able to get anything from it. If I could get 1 or 2 lot releases, the reason I asked for 4, quite simply, is because there's a tremendous amount of fill that needs to go from the back of the subdivision over to those 4 contiguous lots, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Again, not that I can build them, but it might, because we'd be moving sand, and again, this is all weather permitting. I just figured I would ask for all 4, and that's the main reason. Otherwise, whatever work's going to be done to those other lots will be done in the spring. I just don't know what the winter's
So
gonna be.
just now I'm unclear. Are you asking for us to direct Mr. Tanzi to recalculate the bond? Are you asking?
I believe he probably may have already. I've spoken with him a couple of times, but I don't know, Greg.
Through the chair, Mr. Chairman, yeah, I did revise the bond estimate. I had a question about the wetland replication area. I don't. It was before my time when this subdivision was permitted. I wasn't an employee of the town, so I'm not sure exactly what was required with that wetland crossing. Typically, there's a replication that's involved, that's required, and I couldn't tell whether that had been done or what exactly was involved in that. We have a conservation agent now. Maybe she might have some insight to it.
Did Mr. Antonero review that proposal? Or that project was approved even before I was on that project was probably approved originally 20 years ago.
Right, yeah.
And then it was modified. Did Mr. Antonero, was he the design review on that?
He probably did. I suppose I could check with him on that. I tried to get a hold of some of the approved plans, but I didn't seem to see.
That was modified. It was modified.
Yeah, I think.
So we need to get Mr. Tanzi the updated plans and get a new bond.
Yeah, through the chair, I did send over Mr. Tanzi the 2007 plans that were originally approved and mentioned within the modification. But I don't believe that the modified. I would have to recheck at the Registry of Deeds if the modified plans have been recorded.
The modified
I
plan,
can-
if I remember, the modified plans came in to remove the vertical, granite
Correct.
building.
It was replaced with Cape Cod berm.
We went to a monolithic berm and we had them update the drainage calculations and upgrade the drainage to meet the current standards, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, talking about like mailboxes.
But I think just, and the board can weigh in, but I think we don't have any bond money. We can't release any lots without money. In the past, we released one. If the board wants to release one, I think we can, but I don't know if that helps the applicant or not. I don't know if that's what he wants or not, so.
It does help me if you release one, because that allows me to get a foundation in, the foundation permit only for now, and would allow me to get National Grid to start bringing power to the community.
Board thoughts on that? We've done, Mr. Solari, because this all falls on you once we do it. So
Yeah, we've done it.
We've done this for the last 4 or 5 neighborhoods, right?
Yeah, we've done in the past because basically, as you know, the occupancy permit controls the use of the house. So what we've done in the past is allowed that, and no occupancy permit can be given until everything else has been released for the project.
And the bond's been posted, correct?
Yeah, the satisfaction of the bond is usually what releases the occupancy permit.
I think we did that with Attorney Castaneda. We did that with one of the Latola projects.
Yep.
I think we did it with Crimson Way at
Yep.
one point, so.
Yep.
Just speaking personally, I would be in favor of proceeding as such. Just to help the developer out a little bit, because that tends to help get projects moving. So I'd be willing to do that, but that's just my personal opinion.
Well, here's the thing though, we already released it pending receipt of the bond, correct, Mr. O'Brien?
Yeah, that would be the receipt of the surety bond.
Because we already voted on this to release, this request already came to us, correct?
Correct.
Well-
And kind of the way that this has kind of come about too is that the applicant did file a building permit, which I naturally said I would need $300,000 for you to get a lot release and some building signatures based on what happened in February of 2022. But I naturally rejected the building permit. So if there was the assumption that a lot were to be released, it would be that lot 12 from the subdivision that currently has a pending building permit. But like you said, Mr. Chair, we are kind of held to the decision making of the past. So we would have to make, I guess, another decision for a release of that covenant, just essentially a modification of that previous decision.
So there are 12 lots. We've already released all 12 pending receipt. But now we're rescinding that release of 12 lots until a new calculation's done, but we're gonna release one, but subject that occupancy permit to the receipt of the bond.
I'm sure there's a nicer way of saying that, but yeah.
I'm sorry, when are you referring to all that? Back in 2021 or 2022?
2022 is February 2022.
When
That's
Michael
when the board.
Tosca?
I don't know per se, but I do. The draft draft covenant release that was provided to you wasn't signed by the board members nor notarized. But it was based on the either that the work was done or that a surety was posted to ensure completion to the satisfaction of the board. So yeah, that was the one that's had Michael's name on it.
He was the owner at the time.
So no lots have been released, correct?
Correct. Yeah, we would need surety and signature from the board that was never done. Those documents would have to be recorded, so.
So your original decision in 2022 was not completed?
Correct.
Well, that was a lot release in 2022.
Yeah, the lots.
We voted to release all 12 contingent upon that 340 or whatever it was.
Correct.
But the vote to release those happened.
Oh.
Pending the receipt of the money.
Yes.
So we never released them because we never got the money.
Right.
That was with a prior owner. I don't know if that matters.
So that was never recorded.
Hmm?
That was never recorded, right, Shane?
Yeah, I provided the draft document we have a draft Word document that I provided to the applicant as well as the board. But yeah, it was never signed, never recorded, never notarized. So
Well, it's almost like it never happened.
it happened, but it never came to fruition.
But your regulations require recording of, yeah, they would, actually.
Yeah, I couldn't sign off on a building. When I typically ask for get a sign off for a building permit,
Mhm.
is that I would ask for a lot release as part of that.
Well, all I'm
So-
asking for is lot 2 to be released, one lot.
Lot 2, not lot 12.
Lot 12, I had done that because I thought it was an A&R lot. So we were gonna start, on,
Well, that's a cluster subdivision, isn't it? Aren't those? only
yes, but I
individual-
thought that lot, I was told that lot, obviously misinformed, that lot would qualify for an A&R, so we were gonna start out on East
But
Street.
that first lot's only half an acre, correct? If I remember.
Correct. They're all half acres,
They're all half
pretty
acres.
much.
So that was done under the special permit?
Yeah.
So we would start on that right-hand side with, and the one lot I'd ask for is lot 2.
Right,
That would
so-
allow us to.
Are you talking number 2?
Yeah.
Because on the special on the recorded plan, it's lot 12.
No, the one I had asked for was lot 12, which I thought on East Street, which I thought might be an A&R lot. That's where I was missing a mistake. What I'm asking for is lot 2.
Okay.
That's what I'm asking for now, not lot 12, which I had.
If
Asked
there's
if-
if there's no more discussion and staff is okay, because they're the ones that have to handle it, does somebody want to make a motion to release lot 2?
Well, I just want to kind of provide, based on the information we have, what lot 2 is to the board. Because, sorry, let me pull it up. Sorry, my registry plan's in rough shape. So. Just so that the board has some context.
Mr. Solari, how have we voted on that before? Would you call it a model home lot?
That's what we called it. We called it a model home. Matter of fact, like you said, we did it for pretty much all the last few large subdivisions.
Okay.
And again, and in the decision letter that came from Shane, it stated that, no occupancy would be given until all necessary bonds were met.
Okay.
Requirements.
Yeah,
And
so
also, not to chop you off, but the building permit is no longer any good because it's gone way beyond the timeline of a building permit. So a new building permit would have to be pulled.
Do you see that lot 2,
Yeah.
Mr. Cutter? That's the one you want?
it would be right here.
Yes, sir. Yes, Chairman.
So does somebody on the board want to take a stab
Well-
at making a, go ahead, Mr. O'Brien.
Yeah, could we just maybe talk about the condition of I guess, the roadway to that point of Hiawatha, as well too? Not, I just want to kind of get an assumption from the applicant, what work has been done up to that point.
So I believe, I'm not looking at that sheet, but I believe that most of the infrastructure has been completed at this point. Would be what you would traditionally assume to be done. So you have base coat, all the drainage is in, all the there are transformers there. Obviously the bridge has been done. I believe the engineer signed off on the road. what has not been done, which is the bulk of the bond, is things like, of course, final as-built, sidewalks, final top coat, landscaping, common area trees.
Was all the work witnessed and signed off on by the inspectors? Mr. Tanzi?
Yeah, I was there when they put the binder down, and I made them do the compaction testing, and the compaction testing came back acceptable, and they put the binder down, and the binder went down at the required 3 inches. The water main, I believe, is in the water services. The electric, they've got conduits in, they've got some the fish tape in the conduits and the electric, but they didn't pull the wires as of yet, if I recall correctly. They have to install street bounds. I didn't see any street bounds in lot markers. There's some cleanup in the detention basin that needs to be done, some erosion control. There's a breach and some of the sediment went into the detention basin. So there's some cleanup work here and there. But as far as that lot 2 being accessible, the whole road is paved. The binder course is down, the monolithic berms are in. So as you can see right there, the road has been paved. There's been some lot clearing and rough grading on lot 2, and it looks like the lots on either side of lot 2 have been cleared. So
All right, so Shane, and Mr. O'Brien and Mr. Solari, you just, after hearing that, you still are okay with the release of one model home lot, lot 2, is that correct or not correct?
I am. The location of this lot, excuse me, is toward the front. A lot of the issues with the amount of fill is in the back cul-de-sac. So I have no issue. And again, it is paved and it is pretty much, at a point that we usually will give that one single lot, as a model home.
Yeah, as long as it doesn't become an arrested development situation, I'm totally fine with it. Yeah, I think that based on the work done, I think that's appropriate. I think my hesitation at first was the discussion of the A&R lot, or the quote unquote A&R lot. Whereas I think at least with the release of the one lot for now, at that location, it does push the developer to finish the subdivision, whereas there's hesitation with the first lot of the subdivision being completed and the subdivision being abandoned. So I'm okay with the current request of lot 2 of the subdivision being released and recorded as part of that. And I guess we'll go from there in terms of other calculations for what the applicant wishes to have released in the future.
Okay. All right. So we'll in our decision tonight, it'll clearly state that because the covenant, we can't put a condition in the covenant, it'll be in a decision letter, correct?
Correct.
All right. So does somebody on the board, if we're comfortable with it, want to discuss it more or make a motion to release only lot 2 as a model lot with the condition that no occupancy permit be granted until the entire Road has a new bond calculation and that's posted.
So moved.
Second.
So motion by Mr. McDonald, second by Mr. Haley. Any discussion? Ms. Rojas,
Yes.
Mr. Geller,
Yes.
Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
Mr. Haley,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You.
Other business, item 6, we have minutes from August 21st and September 4th. You got us both of those sets, correct, Mr. O'Brien?
That is correct. It was 6 hours worth of minutes.
Okay.
Got a couple more hours to go for the rest of this year, so.
Do we have a motion to accept those minutes or amend those minutes? Or
Motion to accept minutes.
by Mr. Haley, do we have a second?
Seconded.
By Mr. McDonald. Any discussion?
That must have been riveting, Mr. O'Brien.
It's one of the best feelings to watch yourself talk for hours.
All right. So we have a motion by Mr. Haley, second by Mr. McDonald, is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Ms. Rojas,
Yes.
Mr. Geller,
Yes.
Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
Mr. Haley,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. Next meeting, January 15th, Mr. O'Brien.
Yep, next year. You guys got the schedule all for next year. I'll give you guys a little bit of a break. Enjoy the holidays and all that jazz. But yeah, currently at this time, we may have some additional items based on a application review process that we're going through right now that's relatively new. So we'll let you know if the Broad Street project you'll be on in the next meeting. So we're just currently in the process of reviewing the application for completeness, but once that's declared complete or otherwise, we'll let you know.
Mr. O'Brien, is it appropriate for you to give us an overview of that project this time?
No.
Okay. Hey, simple
An
question. simple answer,
overview?
really.
No. I would say that that application we currently have that application before us from a zoning board standpoint, so it's within our office. But yeah, I'm gonna hold off on providing an overview on as I kind of look to complete the review process. Is
Right, and you're in the review process, but all the documents are public now. I think they're what with the
yeah,
town-
we had a pre-application review meeting that we have the town clerk's office has as well as the building inspector. And he also provided a letter. So
So if you want- if you
we're
want to
going
do-
through the motions of the process. So
If you want the documents, request them. We can go from there.
by all means, yes.
Okay, anything else at this point?
So,
Other than-
Mr. Chair, did you ever write a letter to the town manager about meeting as of January 1st in person?
I did, there's a little bit of back and forth as to whether or not we could do hybrid or just in person. I responded today, I believe. I basically emailed our wishes that we wish to go back on the January 15th meeting. She very quickly got back to me and said she was working on it. I received an email a day or two ago saying, were you thinking in person only, or were you thinking hybrid? Because the hybrid's a little more difficult to manage and there may not be staff. And basically I responded saying, I guess I was looking to her for guidance, open to either. In person would be fine, but the town's gonna have to face this decision on April 1st anyway, because
Regardless.
the governor's order ends on the 31st. So I think I said in my email, we'll just mirror it. If she wants us to mirror that, whatever their plan is, I imagine if they don't have a plan, they better get one soon for April 1st. So
I would not be shocked if that order was extended, to be honest with you.
We'll
Yeah, we
see. The last economic bill didn't include it. It didn't include, I think I briefly
Permit
mentioned
extension.
this at the last meeting, another permit extension act. But no, it didn't include any extension for that. But crazier things have happened, but I would keep you guys in the loop regarding,
I mean, as soon as Shane's on the emails with me, so as soon as we get some direction from the town manager, I'm sure he can send a blast out to the board.
regardless, we're gonna make it work. So
There are other committees that are meeting in person, aren't there?
Correct.
There are some, but I would say that public input is a little different with a board like this comparative to some other committees. Some of those other committees, you might have a couple people in the room, whereas like a meeting like tonight, you might have a larger scale of abutters that would require the council chambers to be utilized comparative to conference room 201A.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a strange situation because I do actually think this format gives the people a better access to their representatives. Not that we're like elected, you know what I mean? But
Agreed.
yeah, it's a tough one.
Yeah.
Agree. Especially, I would say that one of the things that I have, and this is just something in terms of we would have to figure out anyways, is just having the YouTube recording available to members of the public as well as myself to watch the minutes, because during the meeting I write down scribbly notes, but not necessarily a transcript of everything that occurs. So
So
it's
I would-
figuring out public participation, you guys is being able to function, public input, as well as you know, a recording of the events that occur in a meeting too. So
So I mean, obviously, we gotta keep everybody in the loop because the next meeting will either be in person or it'll be Zoom. I don't know if they'll work it out between now and Christmas, and we have to advertise the week before, so I would assume right now, even though we requested it, that we'd probably be Zoom next meeting, but Shane will keep everybody in the loop, I'm sure.
yeah, as noted, always check the agenda for where the meeting location will be. But I would say I would definitely keep everyone in the loop if there was a change in the situation.
I was just curious if you heard anything back, that's all, thanks.
All right, so Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Happy
Same to you.
Hanukkah.
Yes, and just one point, just in the planners report, I believe Eric Costa has been appointed as our new associate member of the planning board. So we're just waiting for him to be sworn in. So we got a full deck, 5 members, 2 associates. We're doing great.
Mr. Haley, did you want to say something? Were you raising your hand?
I was stretching. Sorry.
That will be noted in the minutes.
You only have another 2 hours and 45 minutes to do now, so.
That's fine. No.
All right, well, thank you, everybody. Good night.
Have a good night.
Happy holidays.
Motion to have a
Happy
good
New
night.
Year.
Motion to have a good night.
Motion to have a good night.
Motion to adjourn by Mr. Haley,
Yep.
second by Mr. McDonald. Mr. Geller,
Yes.
Mr. Haley,
Yes.
Mr. McDonald.
You forgot the discussion part. Yes.
Simultaneous discussion.
Ms. Rojas,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Happy
Merry
holidays. Merry
Christmas,
Christmas.
everyone.
Take care, y'all.
Hey,